All right, awesome guys. I'm really important. How about you?
Sure, I go by I'm really important. We talk politics on my channel, focus on Capitol Hill, what's going on in the House, the Senate. We're watching the 2020 races, Senate races, House races, you name it. So that's what we do on my channel, and yeah.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for coming out. Dylan, it's all you, man.
Hi, my name is Dylan Burns. I do foreign policy content. I'm a foreign policy advisor. I advise for two congressional candidates, Senator Jill Carter, state senator, and Michaela Wilkes. I worked on the Mike Gravel campaign and some other campaigns locally, organized mayoral campaigns. If you come to my channel, you're going to get good foreign policy content. I'd really appreciate if you checked out my channel, Dylan Burns TV.
Hell yeah! Thanks for coming. Dan, what's up?
Hey, twitch.tv/Harkdan. I'm just, here to help out, give a take of a guy that's doesn't know that much about anything. So, if you want the uninformed take, look no further than this.
Iconic.
All right, Sushi. I know you're ready for this one. How you doing?
Hello, my name is Sushi. I have red hair. Just kidding. My name is Sushi. I do not do political content on Twitch, but sometimes I do. Bet you didn't know that. You guys just thought I was a woman. That's right, boys. Sometimes I do political content. And sometimes I'm kind of cringy. That's okay though, because okay, Mindwaves only invited me because I'm a girl and he told me that, okay?
Oh.
So fucking
Exposed.
Oh my god.
God damn it. I knew this was gonna be my best episode yet.
I like how you shook the camera right after you did that. It said fucking exposed. By the way, just to let everybody know, I stole Sushi's introduction and reworded it. So that was really I owe that to her.
True.
All right,
that makes
sense.
sense.
Also, my political leanings are like extreme libertarian to anarchist, unironically.
Sick.
Frankies, calm down. All right, chill in the chat. All right, chat, chill. All right.
This is a Arctic Freeze from Dairy Queen. It's the strawberry kiwi flavor.
Have you ever had that with like as a float? Like
yeah.
you get that and you put ice cream in it? Oh,
Why
it's so
people don't
fucking
take
good,
the
dude.
anarchist movement seriously, just because of you.
Why? Because she wants the freedom to drink her Arctic Freeze in peace.
Listen, take this shit more seriously, Sushi. All right? You want this to be a real fucking political movement? Or you want to talk about your Arctic Freeze? No one's going to believe in anarchy if you're like, yeah, I went to Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, Dunkin'. Love it. Got the Frappuccino. The fuck, son? You're trying to have political change. Okay?
Listen. I can drink my Dairy Queen on stream, but if we lived in an anarchist society, I could also do drugs on stream. So
let me explain something to all you. When we can get one Discord server that's run under anarchy, I'll consider running the entire government that way. Why don't we do baby steps where we can get a Discord server run under anarchy? Then I'll believe that this whole thing has a real chance. Until then, I'm going to stick with the fact that all the biggest anarchy streamers have very moderated, top-down, hierarchical Discords. And I was like, that's interesting. I would think there might be a better
They're justified hierarchies, all right? It's totally okay.
Yeah, I
You gotta read some Kropotkin, man.
All right, so you guys saw the topic list. I wasn't sure which one to start off with, but if you guys have any suggestions, I'm totally up for it. If there's any like topic that stood out to you, what do you guys think?
I thought we were just gonna go in order. My notes are just in order.
We can just go in order if you want. We can just take it right down the list.
I think I just think if you're gonna write a list in a certain order, why would you?
Okay, all right. Well, topic 1 then, Democratic primary.
Yeah, the one you didn't want, Sushi.
Yeah, I know. That's why I need time to look at my notes for the.
This is anarchy in action, man.
Exactly.
All right. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna touch on one specifically. So Hillary Clinton was once again in the news, this time for her concern on Bernie Sanders, where she said in an interview, he was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. He was a career politician. It's all baloney, and I feel so bad that people got sucked into it. She asked if that assessment still holds up, to which she replied, "Yes, it does." I think we could start off on that alone, but I don't know. What do you guys think about Hillary going after Bernie Sanders recently?
Oh boy, here we go again.
Well, I think what she said about him getting nothing done is like objectively true, isn't it?
Careful. This is a long conversation if you get into it right now. Let's just say we agree to disagree on how much was done by Bernie and the quality of the.
Me and Harkdan already hashed this out on a separate stream pretty thoroughly.
Right. So Bernie Sanders has very little, if anything, in terms of like mainline legislation, but he's done a lot of amendments, basically, right?
Yeah,
That's
there's
the
a lot
long and short of it, right?
There's a lot of stuff like naming a holiday, a lot of stuff like naming a holiday, renaming a post office. There's a lot of those things that I saw.
Try to stop a Yemeni genocide. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now, so did he like introduce the Yemeni genocide bill
in the Senate?
Like, okay. All right. Well, you know, I mean, so that seems to be the theme of Bernie Sanders is like his big initiatives. He tried. All right. He's been trying. He's been trying the important stuff, and
to be fair, the thing about the Yemeni genocide bill specifically, it wasn't called that. It was like, stop funding the Saudi government in this specific military operation. He actually was able to be extremely bipartisan when it came to that bill, and actually got like he got Mike Lee, he got a lot of Republicans step on both sides of the aisle in the House and the Senate, and was able to get it passed under a Trump presidency with the Senate in Republican hands, which to me showed either.
What bill is this?
This had to do with, I forget the exact name of the bill, but just if you look at Bernie Sanders Yemen bill, it should come up pretty quickly. And it ended up with Trump vetoing it, which at that point, I mean, the bipartisanship's dead. You can't really do much past that. But I would expect it was a shock to even get that through the Senate, which it was an incredible feat, which I would think under a Democratic presidency, if it got through the Senate, it would be put into law. Obviously, definitely under President Bernie Sanders if it's its own bill.
There you go. Yeah, a key sponsor of the resolution. Well, that's good.
Well, I mean, I personally think that the best argument for Bernie Sanders on this is like to just say, look, no, I never actually got many bills passed. Like, I admit it, I didn't really objectively, under normal standards, get anything done in my time as a Senate. But if you actually look at the bigger picture, like, I have substantially pushed hardcore leftist progressive socialist policies and mainstreamed them now, and like moved what were once thought of as like, completely opposite of everything America was doing. That is now potentially, almost ready to win a major party primary to bring those ideas into the mainstream, which is pretty effective. I mean, that's, I think, his best argument.
Whether you like Bernie or not, what he has been able to do in the last 5 years is absolutely incredible. From 2015 to now, him being basically unknown, unless you're a political junkie, to now being having a really decent chance at beating Joe Biden, the former vice president of the United States under Barack Obama, a widely popular president if you look at polling, in a Democratic primary with basically no establishment support, which is a wild concept. And if you would have told anybody in 2014 that would be the case, they would have laughed you away. So,
you know what? I want to pose an interesting question here on this one. So this is something I was thinking about a little bit. So I don't like Andrew Yang, and the reason I don't like him is I think he's buying his way to candidacy. I think without his $1,000 a month thing, he would be nowhere on the map whatsoever. He's bought his way there, and a lot of people who say, "Hey, I want money," so he's my guy. Now, let me pose you another question. If I was to run and say, "Hey, I'm going to do $5,000 a month for everyone, and we're just going to tax companies to get there," I might be a serious candidate as a result of that. So and you guys would be like, "I'm against this. This guy is essentially promising shit he can't do." We all know there's no way I can give everyone $5,000 a month. We'd all agree, despite like modern monetary theory and all this stuff. It's not happening. The whole economy is going to go to shit if you give everyone in the country $5,000 a month. So here's the next question. If that's considering buying the election because it's unreasonable and we know it can't be done, is Bernie to an extent buying the election because what he's trying to pass can't be done and we all know it can't be done?
Yes, absolutely.
And
yes.
also, for what it's worth, while I like Andrew Yang, to the extent you think $1,000 a month is buying an election, then $1,000 worth of government benefits, even if it's not cash, certainly is at least much buying your vote as that is. Although it's a little less neat, little less clean buy. It is nevertheless still as much a buy, is it not?
Well,
So-
they all make campaign promises. Donald Trump ran on build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. I haven't seen a check from Mexico, so it's campaign rhetoric.
Okay. Now, I dislike Andrew Yang for separate reasons, mostly that he doesn't know anything about foreign policy, and he has shown that evidently on the campaign trail and with what he said, like with policy. We can get into that if somebody wants to get into that with me. It's I would almost say it's objectively true, but maybe he's like hiding his power level on foreign policy. I don't know. Maybe he's a Kissinger stan. But when it comes to not being able to get anything done, I mean, I think it's a question of, is that physically possible or electorally likely, right? For instance, I would say right now, under normal circumstances, it is probably electorally unlikely for Bernie to just be able to, like, here's my Medicare for All bill, we got it through the Senate. Definitely when we don't even have the majority of Democrats in the Senate on his side. In the House, it's a different story. But in the Senate, it's pretty clear the Democrats in the Senate haven't really gone on there yet. Maybe when he's president, he'd get them, but they also need some Republicans. Unless, of course, we're working very hard at 21st century Democrats to flip those Senate seats. We're going to do it. I can't make any promises, but we're going to try our best. But there's a difference between saying that and like Andrew Yang saying, well, somebody saying, well, now $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month. At that point, you're getting something that is like physically impossible, right?
Really?
I don't
You're talking about
know.
Medicare for All. That's a program that's going to cost tens of trillions of dollars. It might very well amount to $5,000 in programming for every American. So, I mean, if you're going to talk about what's possible, I mean, let's be real then about what's possible.
Well,
And how much money are we talking about? I've heard people say that his plan would cost, like, just to be clear, the $1,000 a month, if given to every adult American, would cost about $2 to $4 trillion, depending, I guess, on how you think the economy would grow and whatever. So let's say it's $3 trillion to do that. That was the last time I added it up. Well, that's much cheaper than what I've heard with respect to really guaranteeing Medicare for all Americans. I mean, you know, so let's talk about, I mean, buying votes, because that's a lot of money any way you slice it.
No, I 100% agree with Bastiat's take. I think both promising free college and free healthcare for everybody and free this and free that. It's a long list of free stuff from the government, and it's been a long standing Democrat Party, leftist, liberal, socialist, Marxist. You want to go all the way back, like that's where it originated, is that the government will provide. We're all a part of the government. Have the government take care of us, pay the government, all this stuff. And because otherwise you're going to have the greedy rich people taking advantage of everybody else. And like the Democrats have largely won many elections starting in the 1930s on government programs, taxpayer funded government programs. I mean, that was what the FDR New Deal was. And then Lyndon Johnson repeated it with the Great Society. And those programs have bankrupted our country and have put us in a terrible, terrible spot. So I think and to go down that road even further, I think is crazy, which is why I think the Democrats are going to have a real hard time in 2020.
What do you mean bankrupt our country?
Bankrupt? I mean, more Americans are apparently satisfied with the economy than they've been in the last 20 years. The last time I read, I'll drop the source for that in a minute. But Trump is running on a very strong economy, you know, and I mean, that would seem to be a real problem for people who want to vote for systemic change like Bernie Sanders. It seems like that's going to be a real problem when President Trump can just come out and say, look, you may not like me, as he said to, I believe, as he said in a recent speech, you may not like me, but you're going to vote for me anyway, because you know who those other people are, okay?
Well, I mean, there's a big part to that, right? If you look at the amount of receipts that the federal government does a year right now, it's around $3 trillion. So, I mean, essentially, if you're going to tack on an extra $3 trillion to that, I mean, that's, you know, someone's taxes are at least getting doubled. Yeah, right? And I don't think that's sustainable.
Okay. So anybody saying lecture fan, you know you're wrong when you say that it's free, because there's taxes, and that isn't free because people have to pay taxes.
Well, just to be clear, right? Some people on the Bernie side, including his economic advisor Stephanie Kelton, are straight up modern monetary theory. That is to say, we don't need to raise taxes. We can just print. The economy
they don't have real. I want to interrupt here. MMT isn't really possible at all under the law, right? Because the government doesn't have say to demand more currency being printed for bills, right? I mean, if there was, we'd have congressmen being, like that's not an option that we just have to use a fuck, why can't I think of it? Executive order to be able to, hey, let's go print $1 trillion. Like, it doesn't, like, that option is not there.
Look, I mean, the government has, I mean, the inflation in the 70s was driven in large part by government provision of the money supply. I mean, that was the argument of Milton Friedman, the monetarist, that all you had to do to control inflation was to stop printing it. So, I mean, at one point, I guess we had some policy like that. I'll look into it, but I mean, suppose it were legally possible. Like, I think that's how they plan to pay for it. And people like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that is, are really interested in this stuff. I mean, this is how they square the circle of how do we pay for these giant programs? Well, you know, we can do it.
I think if you're gonna say that MMT is something, then I think for the sake of the conversation we have here, we just have to assume MMT is not possible, because otherwise you can literally just do whatever you want, right?
Well,
so free healthcare, free cars, free girlfriends and boyfriends, and yada 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 for everyone. We'll just pay for it out of MMT.
Well,
that's it, right? I mean, why stop at
Yeah,
healthcare
that's
and
what they
everything?
say.
Like,
Yeah, that's what
give
they
it
say.
give it a little contour here, and then I'll stop talking about it. But it's like, it's not as crazy as it sounds. I do think it's wrong, but they say basically the economy has a certain amount of capacity. That is to say, the money supply should match the productive capacity of the economy. And their argument is, I've heard people say that we're at about 70, 80% in terms of money supply to economic capacity. So we could print like another 20, 30% worth of cash to fill that capacity. We could use that to pay for programs without causing inflation. And they look at the federal government's inability, through interest rates to impact the inflation rate as like some evidence of this, that inflation's not a problem right now. I mean, it's all very spurious to me, but I mean, if you're asking like, how do they plan to pay for it? That's a big part of it.
Why do the Democrats always have to talk about how we're going to pay for it? Donald Trump has doubled our deficit to $1 trillion and nobody bats an eye. They're like, well, the economy's doing great. Yeah, we're running our credit card.
No, I've been criticizing Trump and the Republicans this entire time for that, and I've always criticized Republicans for not, putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to what they talk about the deficits. And as an American conservative voter, I'm really getting sick of these Republicans saying that they're going to, cut spending and balance the budget, and then we send them off to Washington, D.C., and that never happens. And I'm getting real sick of it. But I'll be the first to call out the Republicans, including Donald Trump, on outrageous government spending. I mean, this is why we talk about a swamp. It doesn't matter what party's in there. They're just doling out all of this cash to their friends and their buddies, and this department and that department, and this funding for that industry and this funding for that industry. And it's just a complete dirty swamp. And the Republicans and Democrats are just as deep into it. And that's the perfect example why how you can tell is because of the deficit right now.
As much as I hate to break up the circle jerk, I will say that MMT is not the prime justification for Medicare for all. MMT is not. Bernie has said on multiple, he's not going to like, we're just putting it on the government credit card. He has said on multiple occasions that there will be taxes. He's said several I don't remember all the taxes, but I believe a transaction tax, a lot of other taxes. This isn't just like something that's like, yeah, we're just going to add a huge industry onto the government paywall and there's going to be no taxes. So when he talks about the justification, how he's going to pay for it, he doesn't say, I've never even heard Bernie bring up MMT. I've never heard. Now, there might be people within his campaign or around him who does theory around MMT, but the prime justification I've always seen from Bernie himself, words out of the babe's mouth, has been not MMT, but we're going to tax the rich and powerful, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you're going to, and he has said that there are going to be taxes for ordinary Americans. But his argument has always been that the taxes placed on ordinary Americans would end up being less than what they are currently paying for healthcare costs. So I think branding this, even if you disagree with that assessment, branding this as simply an MMT, and that's all that's going to be. It's just going to be putting on the company credit card, and that's all it's going to be. That's just, I feel like that's kind of dishonest.
No, you're right. There will be tax increases too, but of course, that's not the only big government program he has in mind. He has a whole suite of them in mind. I mean, once he gets rid of the student debt,
and he has a tax for that.
So does Andrew Yang.
And now his plans are much more conservative. Although I get your argument, ultimately, free stuff is free stuff. There's just a question of how much free stuff.
Wait, if just Medicare for all is going to be $3 trillion a year, how much is the other programs that Bernie's trying to approach?
Just to be clear, I don't know if he's given an amount, because just the other day he was on an interview where somebody said, "How much is it going to cost? It could cost this many trillions a year," and he was like, "Nobody knows how much it's going to cost." And I mean, it's not a crazy statement in some sense, because it's a big change. I mean, it's hard to I guess, estimate, but I mean, I don't know. Does anybody know? Have you heard, Dylan, how much it's
We're going
projected
to
to
plunder
cost?
and pillage. I don't know how the entirety of his plan altogether is. I've heard separate estimates. I heard, for instance, the healthcare thing is always the 32 trillion over, I believe it's a decade, right? But then the counter for that, well, the current system is 35 trillion. Now, to be fair, the transition from a private industry to a government industry, there's going to be hiccups, definitely of this massive of a scale. It's just a question is if you're willing to deal with those hiccups. I personally am. Again, healthcare is not my. That's something I usually like to debate, but I mean, there is argument there.
Do you when you say you personally am, or you personally are? So I just dropped a link in there. It says 34 trillion over 10 years. That's about 3.5 trillion. When you say you personally are, I mean, what do you mean? You know, like how much additional tax are you willing to pay?
I am personally, I don't know what the American people are willing to pay. I'm willing to pay personally whatever it takes. But that's because I have very personal experience related to this.
Well, Bernie has a figure. He said 4% on every dollar over 29,000.
Yeah, that's not going to cover doubling the taxes.
Yeah,
that will cover 4% of
that's
the
what Yeah, and I was gonna bring up the $29,000 point. Like that's struggling. If you're making $29,000, you're like on the edge of the poverty line. So it's basically going to be everybody. The lower classes are even going to have their taxes raised. But
well, of course, everybody is.
Well, they also won't have to pay for healthcare anymore.
Yeah, that's the argument that the overall cost of healthcare will be will be.
I mean,
but here, here's
and up the tax base by I guess like 4%. Then this guy Knowing Better did a great YouTube video about it where he compared the tax bill of a British citizen who gets free healthcare with an American who doesn't get free healthcare and has to pay for it separately, and the American ends up paying more at that income level in terms of taxes plus healthcare than the British person pays in just taxes. So I'll drop the link to the video for anybody who wants to check it out.
And one of the main problems with these Medicare for All plans, and the last time I looked at Andrew Yang's website, he has the biggest, most complex website of any candidate. He's got a plan for every issue, and I thought he supported Medicare for All. If not, he supports substantially something very similar.
He still calls it Medicare for All, though.
It's really
one of the main problems with Medicare for All is that they get their numbers for how much it's going to cost by taking by thinking they'll pay every healthcare provider the same reimbursement rates that Medicare and Medicaid pay. And so right now, the way the system works is that private healthcare payers with private health insurance, they reimburse the hospitals for healthcare services way more. They're paying all this money, and then the private hospitals are taking Medicare and Medicaid patients and getting super low reimbursement rates, hardly making any money at all. So the entire industry is propped up and subsidized by private healthcare payers from private health insurance companies. And so what I've heard from people in the actual industry is that if they were forced to take all of their patients on Medicare reimbursement rates, they would just probably shut down. A lot of these smaller hospitals would just shut down because they wouldn't make enough with just Medicare reimbursement rates. And the bigger hospitals that are going to be able to survive are going to have to drastically cut the quality of services. Wait times are going to go through the roof. It's going to be a terrible reduction in the quality of healthcare in this country, which is one of the main reasons I'm against it.
Oh, wait times. I'd be fine. Honestly, I'd be fine with an increase of wait times.
I wouldn't, and I know other wealthy
how
people
can you
wouldn't
say
be as well.
how can you say I'm fine with this? I'm fine with an unlimited amount. I'm fine with increased wait times. Like at some point, you presumably would not be.
Well, I mean, of course, if literally it's like you have to wait 20 days to like get a bullet taken out of your leg, of course, then at that point. But my question would be, is with this increase of like wait times, would there be an increase of lives being saved due to without either the undercoverage or people not being covered altogether? Would there be less deaths, right?
Well, that's
where I fundamentally like, that's the issue I care about when it comes to healthcare.
But what I would say is that's not likely to happen because people literally die on VA healthcare, government-run healthcare, because they can't get the right services because the current government-run healthcare system we have is that terrible. So I think I don't think it would.
In part because the government, the Republican Party chronically underfunds the VA, in part because they seem to want the VA to fail so they can privatize it.
Mm-hmm. So I mean,
No,
underfunding is
not true.
Not true. Well, let's.
Oh wait, even if you give that the case that it's underfunded, do you want your healthcare something where a new administration come in and underfund it as a result? I mean, the private markets don't really react.
Well, in the
like
current
that one, right?
system, if in the current system people die anyway, right? So I'd rather have a system where we have that chance of being able to cover everybody and have everybody not dying just due to lack of healthcare.
Well,
I'd rather have that. I would much rather have that.
Dude, that's complete bullshit. People aren't dying in America because of lack of health there. If you show up to the hospital at emergency
yes, they
room,
are. Yes, they are.
maybe because there's like a $10 million like process that maybe has a small chance of working. But if you show up into the emergency room in this country, you will get service. So
yeah, but that's the thing. You have to wait till he gets to the emergency room. So if you've got like chronic problems, anything below the emergency room, you don't get it, and you don't get it dealt with because you can't afford it or whatever. Maybe you think you can't afford it. Maybe the whole American healthcare system.
We have Medicare and Medicaid. Most of low income people can get Medicare and Medicaid, and it's freaking great service. And they're subsidized by the private payers, but that you can get. We already have health insurance for low income people.
We have health insurance for the most extreme low income people. If you're making, I believe the figure in Alabama is under $800 a month. If you were that poor, then yeah, you get Medicaid, but that doesn't cover. That covers.
Okay, and I agree. Now you're just talking about healthcare is expensive in the United States, and I agree. We have to make major wholesale changes to our healthcare system. I'm in favor of reforming it. It's got problems. You know why we're here is because Democrats like Lyndon Johnson created Medicare and Medicaid in the 60s and totally intervened in the private healthcare market. So now it's so expensive that people can't even pay for it. So if that's like you're going to argue that, wow, healthcare is expensive in the United States, therefore we need to have a government takeover. That's preposterous. Look at how that works in every other industry.
And here's the thing. Every other industry is not the point compared to, because in terms of every other industry, yeah, I'm inclined to agree that communist, socialist lefties who want to nationalize everything willy-nilly are wrong. But those who look at healthcare and say, well, there are 20 to 30 countries out there who do this. Healthcare is different.
It doesn't work, though.
When you say it doesn't work, they have approximately half on average the per capita healthcare costs, and their healthcare outcomes are comparable on just about everything.
Yeah, so but the quality of care and the service that you get is way worse.
I want to hear Really Important's take on this. What do you think?
Well, I was going to say, look, Bastiat, let's give LectureFan a chance here. So let's hear Donald Trump's plan. I'm sure he's got a comprehensive plan of how to resolve this. So LectureFan, if you could give us some details on that, that'd be awesome.
Well, I don't know what I am aware that Donald Trump is working on. I know what my plan is. I don't know what Donald Trump's plan, but he is working on one. But the point is that Donald Trump is not a policy wonk. But the point is that he's on the conservative side and he listens to Republicans, and there's a lot of different think tanks with a lot of good policy proposals out there. And you know what? Just like Donald Trump has done a great job of picking justices and judges, he'll do a great job of signing whatever bills Republicans put in front of him.
But while he has done that, while he has not had a plan for the first 4 years, people have died due to lack of coverage or no coverage at all or under coverage. And because of that, because of his inaction, and because of his inability to be bipartisan,
you can't blame that on that, dude. People are dying because healthcare is extremely expensive in the United States, which is literally from the government intervention.
I thought you just said like nobody dies from it.
Well, look, hold on.
If there's like a $10 million, program and that's not qualified for Medicare, and nobody has $10 million to pay for you to get whatever medical service you need, then
dude, but it's undercover. Like people,
but I'm talking about
not just that, but just people who have just basic costs or things that are maybe like $20,000 or $30,000 a day need to get done and have an ability to do. Because not only
why doesn't at what point? So do you think the government should pay at whatever costs? So now you're saying, well, there's this particular government or this healthcare service that was developed by the private market and is this wonderful, nice little private healthcare service, and it costs $50,000 to do it, and some people can pay for it, some people can't. And there's another little healthcare service developed by the private market, by private industry, and it's got people that do it, and doctors and nurses, and they have a program that costs $1 million, and then there's another experimental service that's $10 million. Where's the limit? You can't just pay millions and trillions and quadrillions of dollars to.
Then you're basically asking
all of
the question of like, what's the value of a human life? And I am not going to play God, right? I'm not going to play God when it comes to that.
Like I
Well,
definitely
think
would
health
be-
care
It's
system
not
should be
like
saving
it's
lives.
not the government's it's not the government's job to provide health care.
I
You
believe
can-
it
you
should be.
definitely can
Like,
put a dollar
I
value on a
totally-
human life. You can definitely do that. They do
Well,
that
we
in
do it
Europe
all
in
the
their own
time,
healthcare system.
I find
The
it
question is
very
not-
difficult to put a dollar amount on a human life. Very.
Well, look, I also find it difficult, but insurance actuarials do not. There are certainly many ways to calculate the value of a human life, whether you're talking about it's a value for an insurance plan or it's value, I guess, if you melted it down for its essential materials or whatever.
But
It
then
can be
what is a
done.
human
And
life
it's
to its
important that
family?
it can be done because that means we can calculate the value of a healthcare system. They do this in Europe. It's totally doable. The real question is, why is the United States so special that 20 to 30 other developed countries with similar standards of living have figured out this is the optimal way to deliver healthcare? But we in the United States, I mean, how's this going to destroy
Wait,
us?
so
if it
what-
hasn't
I thought you
destroyed
were-
them?
I thought you were just arguing against Medicare for all. Now you're arguing in favor of it?
No.
What are you
I'm arguing
talking
against the
about?
notion. No, I'm arguing against the notion that Medicare for all is like this. Oh yeah, the Yang bucks. That's way too much. We can never do that. But in Medicare for all, we could do that. That's a reasonable idea.
I didn't
No,
say
it's
that we
all-
couldn't.
You're all over the
Lecture
place,
fan feels
Bastiat.
betrayed over here.
Bastiat,
It's
that's
all
not
very
what I
difficult to
said.
pay for, but your point that like this isn't a bad policy, that no other country in the world does this and it doesn't work anywhere, like what's that
All right,
based on?
so I wanted to hear Sushi's take on this. Like,
It's
what
based
do you,
on what you were saying.
what do you think about Medicare for all? Do you think the candidates?
I
supported
too.
are-
I really want to hear this take. Can you? I really want to hear it.
Personally, I think that in an ideal society, privately funded nonprofit organizations that were in charge, would be in charge of healthcare, would be a better system overall. But a lot of people probably would choose to take advantage of those and not like contribute and not find healthcare for themselves in whatever private program would like fit their particular needs. And I don't think we can trust the American people to make decisions for themselves. So because of that, I don't know. It's hard to say because I don't agree with like government funded healthcare. I don't think that that's necessarily the best option because it's hard to put everybody into like one thing or even like a couple different layers. Yeah, that's my answer. So I don't necessarily support it, but I understand why most other people would support it because it's so hard to implement like privately funded like nonprofit organizations that are truly like trying to help people and not just like push some sort of personal agenda as well, which would be an issue. Like maybe they wouldn't want to fund certain things like abortions, or they would choose not to fund certain things within like their programs, and that would like be an issue that would arise.
How do you like your healthcare or access to healthcare right now?
My access to healthcare? I do not go to the doctor. I think that if everybody just eats honey, you'll be okay.
I mean, that's
The notion that I
and that's
reject.
basically we've got what in this country we've got this thriving natural medicine movement, probably in part because this is the only country that has healthcare that is out of reach of the affordability for so much of the population.
It's not though. Give me a break, Bastiat. That's
Oh,
not
it
the
is.
situation. The notion that I reject is that Sushi has to sit here and before she gives her libertarian explanation, she's got to sit here and say, but I'm a good person, don't worry, I understand that, I care about you. And that comes from people on the left acting like they've got a monopoly on sympathy, and it's just simply not true. Like, the reason that I support free market healthcare is because I want the best quality, high quality, best service to be available to the poorest of the poor. And throughout history, it's undisputed. The way you do that is free markets. And the United States has had an incredible healthcare industry over the years.
What if it's unprofitable to cover them?
Hampered by the federal government's intervention. And we actually help the poorest of the poor, and we actually help people get healthcare through less government intervention. So I reject the notion that, like, if you care about people, then you support socialism, because the opposite is true.
Well, you probably could, like, maybe it's possible to have like a total free market healthcare system. I don't know. I'm skeptical of that as much as I wish it was true. But like, even if you could, that is like, we know that's definitely never happening. You're never going to be able to take away like everybody's Medicare, everybody's Medicaid,
Well, look,
all the
the way-
VA
okay.
stuff like that. You're
Yeah.
never taking away like healthcare
No.
for basically over 100
But
million
that's-
Americans. So like,
Okay,
even,
but
if
only
even if that was true, like that is, I mean, we'll have a colony on the moon before that. happens. You know, I mean,
That's not what people are proposing, though.
well,
The proposal is to get the federal government out of all healthcare regulation, phase out Medicare and Medicaid over time, and transfer that process back to cities, counties, and states. Like the whole notion that we just have to throw people out and kill them and blah 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 and be a terrible society. It's like, no, like, look, the Democrats have put us in a really bad position here, the way they've created this healthcare system and the way it's developed over the years because of it. And it is going to be painful and it's going to take a process to get this out. But if you transferred the welfare type healthcare spending in this country to cities, states, and localities, that's the whole premise behind having a federal system with states being sovereign and then delegating power to lower authorities. You get better government results, you get better management, you get less fraud, you get less abuse. So the idea that we just hate people and the truly disabled we just want to throw out on the streets is just complete nonsense.
Well,
We're trying to do my policies are what's best for people.
Let me ask you. Okay, so a company's main thing is profit. That's why companies do what they do. They want to make money. They want to make moolah, right? There's some CEOs that are motivated by slightly different reasons. I believe people who run Shenyun probably really care about Chinese culture and history. But for the most case, it's mostly profit, right? Definitely when it comes to healthcare companies as well. There's probably people involved who also love helping people, but the main point of companies are profit. Okay, let's think about this, for example. Why would it be profitable for a healthcare company to cover, for instance, if let's say a heroin addict came up to them and was like, I need healthcare? Why would it be? How profitable would it be? It's a low income, they're heroin addict, they wasted all their money on heroin. Well, how could it be profitable for them to cover them at a rate where they could get all the services they need while they're also as poor as they probably are?
That's the legal heroin industry.
Somebody else would have to pay for it. That would be
what if no one else can?
I guess then nobody
I
can
don't
pay
think
for
you
it.
understand.
Then they're dead?
No, we don't do that in our society. We have people
Well, they do.
take care
We
of each
do.
other.
We do.
So you're saying in
Not where I live.
Well, I
in
mean,
a
where I live,
nonprofit, private, local healthcare system, people would not want to take care of people in their specific community because those people are drug addicts? Is that what you're fucking saying?
Well,
because
yes.
I would definitely stand up for people in my community.
Exactly.
I might not stand up for someone that isn't in my
It'd be nice
community.
if that was the case. It'd be nice if that was the case. But when it comes to drug addicts, a lot of people look down on them, say it's their fault, that they don't need to help them because that's their problem.
Then they can work that out within their community.
Well, it's super interesting you mentioned this, actually,
But
the
that doesn't seem to
state
be the
and
case.
local thing, because like the Great Society and the national healthcare programs really got going under earnest in the 1960s, back when some states were granting full civil rights to all Americans irrespective of race, and some states were looking the other way while black men and women were being lynched in trees. So presumably there would have been a very different amount of healthcare coverage from state to state if states really were providing this kind of stuff, because when these programs were put in place, in part it was because the federal government was the only part of government that could be trusted not to discriminate against people as thoroughly as thoroughly as over a dozen states were doing at the time. So yeah, I mean, there is no guarantee if you put it at the state level that everybody's going to be taken care of. I mean, some states will do a good job, some states will do a terrible job. Some states, I mean, Massachusetts has one of the highest standards of living, not just in America, but even among developed nations in the world. Mississippi, on the other hand, ranks lower than a lot of our European allies do. So, I mean, state by state isn't necessarily going to mean better in any metric.
Not to mention, like, this idea.
Good argument for the 60s.
I mean, I would say like
the 60s had some good things going. Civil rights. I mean, civil rights reform. I mean, yeah, there were some good things that happened in the 60s. There were a lot of stinking hippies too, but I mean, that doesn't make the 60s all bad. Sorry, Dylan.
I mean, like, we can look at the current system where there's people like drug addicts, for example, who do die in the current system because of that very reason I just gave you. Even when they have Medicare,
Yes,
Medicaid,
drug addicts die. We know drug addicts die.
Yes, but when they die because of something that was avoidable when it comes to their health issues being treated beforehand, when they didn't go because they didn't have the money to go, that's something that we could have dealt with in a different type of system than the one we have currently.
True.
And
Who
it's hard for me to
would
talk
be
about
making the decision of turning down healthcare for people who had addiction problems? Are you saying like everybody would like vote on, oh, are we going to help this person? You don't think that would be like
we do that right now. We voted for Trump.
I'm just saying,
voted
if
for
someone
Trump.
went to the doctor and they were struggling with addiction, why the fuck would they turn them down?
I mean,
That doesn't make
if you want me, I can go in my back room and get a jar off the table and show my mom. But I mean, like, that happens.
It's not well, it's just that like the only way that you can guarantee everybody gets covered is if you do it on a federal level, right? Otherwise, you're saying that like, well, if we leave it up to the states or we leave it up to like local communities, we already know that it's not efficient. It's not everybody's going to be covered. So like, it's just I don't know. If your goal is to get everybody covered,
even if
you would
So
go.
you think
if-
certain areas would feel the pressure to step up and like provide that for like if they see other states doing an amazing job?
No,
and
I
they're
think
really-
that as long
You
they
as
don't think
think
that they would
Americans
step
are
up?
shitty people.
I think as
so
long
no,
as
they don't think
people
that'll
as long
happen.
as people don't see the ramifications of like other people having a lack of healthcare, I don't think they're really going to care, right? Like
I don't really know like why this is a controversial point, like Lecture Fan. I mean, free markets mean that some people, like in our system, there are some people who can't afford, to buy certain products. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I mean, if it's something like healthcare where everybody seems to want everybody to have access to healthcare of enough of a level to save their life, I mean, that's a super expensive product. There are some people who are not going to be able to afford it, and there are some states that are not going to provide it. So, I mean, I feel like I can understand your position as long as you cede the notion of universality. You would accept that it's not going to be universal, and that's just the price of freedom, right?
Well, I think Lecture is saying that people would come in.
I don't know if I see that.
Are you saying,
Go
Lecture,
ahead.
people would come in and fill the gap and take care of those low income people, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, no. Well, first and foremost, if you get the federal government out of it and phase this back to the state, then the prices drop. So you're not going to need to be wasting as much money as we are at the federal government level to pay for these services because the prices drop, and so that's one of the primary purposes behind it.
well, how does that how does that price drop even happen? So that just sounds magical. Like, oh, if we just privatize everything, the prices will be like much cheaper. Like, for
Well, I mean, that's like when the people who want to nationalize and say that we're gonna cut cost of service in half, like all these other countries do. I mean, maybe that's true, but that's not that they're the I guess he's making a claim that folks on the left are making that, all we gotta do is nationalize it and it'll be cheaper, guys.
And
So
I mean, like, and then there's also the fact that like there's always going to be a price that's unavoidable to someone, always, right? That's the whole thing of supply and demand. Unless the price is literally zero, then there will be people who cannot buy that product. In this case, it would be healthcare, right? And if somebody has an expensive procedure that's just expensive because that's how the labor costs and that's just what the medicine costs, and you are too low income for that, then you're just up shit creek.
Well, let me respond to what Bastiat said about having to cede universality. I don't think so, because what I'm saying is that private charities, for one, which is how it's been done all around the world for a long time in a lot of different places in a lot of different ways, and can be effective and can work. And then local governments and state governments can certainly pick up the slack where people are the truly disabled, for example, like at a state government level. I have no problem with government providing support for the truly disabled, for example. So the point is, though, you don't have to cede universality because that gets picked up by the free market, charities, different organizations, and then local governments and state governments. So I don't necessarily think I have to cede that point.
The charity part is where you start to lose me a little bit there, because I look at a place like Skid Row and I'm like, well, look at all this economic opportunity. All these people need homes. So why is nobody helping them?
no money.
There's no money to be made off it.
So, I mean,
Same thing
there
with
are a
people
lot
who
of
can't
reasons
pay for
other
their
than
health
that, but
insurance.
I mean, there are a lot of reasons other than that, just to be clear, why houses aren't getting built, just because they don't have any.
Sure, but I'm saying there's an opportunity. There's a bunch of people that aren't being served, right? You could offer some sort of low-income housing somehow, theoretically, but nobody's going to do it.
In Detroit, they actually did that. They built several neighborhoods and offered jobs within those neighborhoods to people, and those people do pay rent based on the jobs that they're provided. These people are all homeless before, and then they slowly get more integrated into society, and they can choose to actually buy those homes and continue to live there, or they can choose to move out of the neighborhoods if they feel comfortable.
Yeah, I mean,
That's great. I'm all for local
And
governments
Detroit's
doing that.
one of the largest homeless populations, so I think that's pretty important. I don't think we should say, "Oh, nobody ever helps homeless people," when there is systems that are being in place helping homeless people, and you might not just see that.
How would you feel, Lecture Fan, about totally unregulated other fundamental industries, food and power and water? I mean, like that. I mean, those are all heavily regulated right now.
Well,
And I
those
don't
are all
mean just
totally
consumer
different
protection.
things.
Well, no, we're talking about fundamental essentials of life that have some elements about them that are arguably kind of monopolistic, and some elements about them that could be competitive. Certainly, the medical, like the medical business, isn't like this 100% competitive, fully competitive. It can always be competitive from start to finish industry. There are probably at least some parts that we know won't work quite right. Don't work as easily as other like market goods, right? Like when you get sick, for example, and you fall into a diabetic coma, it's really hard for you to make decisions about which hospital you'd like to visit. Like there are issues about it that like aren't quite as simple as buying other goods. So it's not like there are definitely some issues with it that keep it from benefiting from like full competition. I guess like maybe you're imagining everybody would write out their wishes in advance and like, okay, if I'm unconscious, take me to this hospital. I do not want to go to the closer hospital because they're not in my network. Like is it just is healthcare just something about it? We totally could leave it all free market, no government intervention, or like, would you still preserve some government intervention or what?
I would start with none. And then if there were some real essential ones, then I'd be sure. Let's listen to them. I can hear them. Like if you want to have a national healthcare regulation that prevents like, I don't even know, like like toxic disease or like contagious diseases from being transported across state lines or something. I have no idea, but like
would you get rid of the rule that right now, for example, until what is it? It's only since 1986 that we've had the rule that if you go to the emergency room, you get treated. Would you keep that or would you scrap that?
Is that like at the federal level you're saying?
Yeah, it's federal.
At the federal, I'd scrap
law.
that.
Right,
yeah,
but
at the federal level, I'd scrap that.
Now, I don't even mean like just because I just mean purely as a matter of practicality. Like you're saying, I imagine that it's not constitutional because it's a federal thing. So, but would you think that this is good policy if all the states did it then? Or bad policy?
Probably, yeah.
Good policy.
Like that's fine. I don't have any problem with states doing that.
I mean, that is a huge cost driver. That is like a huge anti-free market thing to say the hospital has to treat everybody who comes in who needs it. I mean, that's a huge.
Well, if you want to say
fan or like lecture Tommy.
If you want to take that position, go for it. But
no, look, I'm saying, like, if you're talking about free markets here, like, okay, how free a market are you talking about? Are you just talking about get the feds
the thing
out
about
and it doesn't matter or what?
That
the thing about the
undocumented
emergency
people
room
lecture.
The thing about the emergency room is you don't really have it's bad policy to have like allow the time to like figure out, like if somebody's on their deathbed, like you don't have the time to really enter into contracts with them. Like you were saying, like figure out what work they're in, whatever. So like, yeah, it's like, okay, fine. Like, yeah, but I'm not saying, but the hospital doesn't have to provide millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of services.
I mean, sometimes
and then tax people to do so.
Well, if the government places the requirement on the hospital to take care of you when you arrive riddled with bullet wounds at the emergency room or whatever, then how can the government not compensate the hospital at the end of the day?
No, I'm saying if
bad debt.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
so hold on. I kind of
want to. I'm fine with that being paid.
All right, so I want to steer the direction of this conversation away. Unless we have any more comments about what Hillary said about Bernie, then I wanted to talk about Joe Rogan endorsing Bernie Sanders. So I assume we all already know that. Basically, Joe Rogan recently said it on his podcast. He's been insanely consistent his entire life. He's basically been saying the same thing, been saying the same thing, been for the same things his whole life. And that in and of itself is a very powerful structure to operate from. So the Bernie Sanders campaign used that clip to basically acknowledge Rogan's endorsement. And there's been some backlash to that by some people saying that Rogan has been problematic in the past. So I don't know. How do we feel about this endorsement? Will it impact Bernie's chances at all? Are any of the criticisms aimed towards Bernie over the endorsement warranted, or how do we feel?
As someone who wants Biden and Bloomberg to have a better shot of getting there, I think it's great that we've released a piece of news that caused Warren and Bernie fans to fight in a huge battle as a result of this. So I would just want to thank Joe Rogan, because I think he's actually a Biden fan, because this is the number one thing you can do to cause the two of them to hate each other. So it was great.
This shit doesn't matter. This shit
What do you
really
mean it doesn't matter. Joe Rogan's probably the
no,
biggest
that's not what I
endorsement there
meant.
is.
That's not what I meant. I meant the hatred of it. Like this backlash. Like that's not a significant amount of the voting populace. There are so many people, dude. That's somebody who actually fought in like a combat sports area. Like Joe Rogan's like a god to some of these people, like next to a god. And like hearing him and like there's a lot of people literally just telling people, like, this is who I'm voting for. There's a lot of people who legitimately follow that line, right?
Did you just say you were in combat sports?
Yeah, wait,
Yeah.
what did you say?
What kind of combat sports are you doing?
Boxing.
Damn. This guy will enforce that peace agreement.
Hey, man. I'm a UN peacekeeper.
Well, just when I said like that, I feel like Joe Rogan is probably the big one. He's at least one of the biggest endorsements out there because people who are into Joe Rogan are really into Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
It wasn't even like a full-throated endorsement, though. It was like, well, he let out a big sigh. I'm probably gonna vote for Bernie, and Bernie just like made a highlight video out of it and everything. And I thought that was the mistake. You can't control who endorses you, but it is so funny watching the woke acrobats do backflips trying to show that Joe Rogan's not a bad person based on his previous comments.
It's amazing to watch.
I mean, like Joe Rogan's like a shitty person, right? He is
Why?
objectively. I mean, I think his comments about black people have been pretty bad. I think
From how long ago are these
Pretty
comments?
recent.
I mean, you can evolve, but I mean,
Bad Bunny recent or
Yeah.
beyond?
Well, it was not
Not
Bad
Bad
Bunny
Bunny
recent,
recent.
that's for sure.
he's not Bad Bunny recent.
he
But
made-
I also, I
I
don't
the Planet of the Apes joke, so that
Yeah.
whenever that one was out, let's
It's like
see.
3 years
Planet of
ago
the
or
Apes.
something like that. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I
Like 3
can't
years
help
ago?
it.
That's not too long ago, man.
So
That's
I-
2017.
I'm not a Republican, but I sympathize with how great it must be to be on the right, because it seems like they all just, I mean,
so
for better or for worse. I mean, I understand, like, there's some, they go against the Nazis, but for the most part, there's no woke scolding on the right. It's just they all they're unified. Republicans are extremely efficient and effective at their political goal. But I'm telling you, even as a Democrat, watching some of the shit on the left, I mean, it's fun to watch, but goddamn, Democrats fuck themselves. Like some of the most left people, like TERFs versus feminists. That's some crazy shit to watch. And this is like as left as it fucking gets on that thing.
Look,
It's
I-
amazing.
That's
You're
the
missing-
Eastern Front
You're
right
missing
there.
my point. I literally don't care if I think he's a shit person or not. As somebody who works in actual politics, I work with people I think are shit all the time. I also I've made this if someone's a shit person, doesn't decide whether I'm going to interact with them or do something. I think Soleimani was a shit and horrible person. I don't think we should have killed him. I think what we did was bad. Right? That's what guys' my policy is. What are the effects of this? And I think the effects of the Joe Rogan endorsement are generally going to be good for Bernie Sanders to be elected. I want Bernie to be elected, so I think it was a good thing.
Oh,
as a, I know it's not politically correct to say in these parts, but I'm a Joe Rogan fan, and I feel like he's done. Joe Rogan has done a lot for Bernie Sanders in terms of having him on a show. Biden and Warren asked to be on a show, by the way, and I guess he said no, or it just didn't happen for whatever reason. I think because he said no, but he had Bernie Sanders on. The only other two candidates he had were Tulsi and Yang, who are of course much smaller. So he, I think, helped Bernie a lot with having him on the show and then giving him an endorsement. And I mean, if you can't look past the rest of it for that, I mean,
I can totally understand why you're a huge Joe Rogan fan, since he is all over the map on his beliefs, and he'll say one thing one day and say the opposite thing the next.
I am on a
Drag
much
him, Lecter.
deeper, I'm a much deeper level of consistency that you mere mortals may not understand. All right.
Oh, okay.
Bastiat plays both sides for fun. Come on. But I think the Joe Rogan endorsement is great. I think it's exactly what Bernie needs. It's somebody more moderate, legitimizing and getting behind him besides, you know what I mean? I think it's fantastic. I'm blown away by watching the people who scold everybody over every little transgression to be like, Joe Rogan's not that bad, actually. Like, it's like everybody made a trans joke and whatever. Like, come on.
I mean, I remember when Hillary Clinton tried to get the endorsement from Henry Kissinger and worked super hard for that, right? And I mean, if I was in her camp and I legitimately thought Henry Kissinger's endorsement would give me the votes, even though I didn't want that for obvious reasons, but I mean, there would be a strategic reason for that. And if the Henry Kissinger vote was right next to a primary and it was the thing I thought that would get me over the edge, there is an argument for that.
And I really want to know, like, what value does the Henry Kissinger endorsement
Literally
have?
nothing. If anything, actually, Bernie used it to attack her in one of the debates, and it was like one of the highlight moments.
Wow.
So it was actually like honestly, like I think getting the endorsements from people who have helped Pol Pot slaughter people is probably not the best thing for your campaign.
Much as you can say about Henry Kissinger, I imagine that the Henry Kissinger's endorsement convinced me not to vote for Hillary is probably this much bigger than Henry Kissinger's endorsement convinced me to vote for Hillary or whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's a pretty small thing either way. I mean, as bad as like.
But you weren't like, oh God, I love Hillary, but God, does she have the Henry Kissinger vote though?
Yeah, no,
it's not like that's not a thing. It was just a bad thing that she did. It was like a really bad to pursue that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's not a fool. I'm sure she thought there was some value in it. I just don't know what it is.
It kind of scared me a little bit more. Like, it's why are you like trying to get cuddly with Henry Kissinger? Like, what does this say about your foreign policy beliefs? Like, this is a little weird. Like that scared me more than anything.
He won the Nobel Prize, all right? He won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, what have you done, mate? Talking shit on Kissinger, all right?
Well, I'm a foreign policy advisor, man. I do what I can. I do what I can.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue, the endorsement. It's the way Bernie made the highlight video that was a little weird. But, especially on top, like, so recently was the Cenk episode where Bernie endorsed Cenk, and then he had to retract that or withdraw it less than 24 hours later.
How did you feel about that? I thought that was kind of weird.
I thought it was a disaster for the campaign. So that's why when I saw this, I was like, what is going on here? Who is running Bernie's show here? Like, what? Did he not learn his lesson? Like, just let people endorse you, let people do whatever, but stay away from, like, latching onto it.
I mean, to be fair, like, let's say somebody missed the Joe Rogan endorsement, right? Let somebody say, because Joe Rogan fans don't tune into every episode. There's a lot of episodes, right?
Sure.
I only tune in when I think it's something of substance. Like, I'll tune in for Bernie. I'll tune in for Cornel West. I'll tune in maybe for Yang. I don't know. Tune in for a flat earther here and there for the lulz. But when it comes to he just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that I got this guy's endorsement. Which, if you get into the Joe Rogan fans, and then Bernie's running ads of him saying that, then the endorsement sounds that much louder.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I'm really important. Do you think if Cenk Uygur actually wins his election, do you think that'll be a disaster for the Democrats?
I don't see any scenario where Cenk wins. He's a carpetbagger. That district was Republican just not too long ago. You don't go from Republican to like progressive Democrat like that. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I didn't know that. Okay.
He doesn't even live in the district, but
I haven't heard in a while. I like it.
That's the kiss of death. Bernie retracting his endorsement. That's the kiss of death. It's over. And Cenk is going to cost us that seat if he doesn't get out of the race soon.
Interesting. Where did he come from?
Touring News, man. What's up? Welcome.
What's up, Tori?
Yeah, I can't stay. I'm not allowed to be here. So I'm sorry, Mindwaves. I should have said something earlier. But because of the NDA and all this kind of stuff, I'm not allowed to do like media appearances or like any like shows or anything.
Just found out, but he's kind enough to come here and let us know in person.
All right. Yeah, no problem, man. Hey, thanks for letting me know, though.
Yeah, I should have let you know sooner. I actually think that I knew earlier, but I didn't even realize that it's already so late at nighttime.
We've already broken the NDA. Might as well fucking YOLO it at this point.
YOLO it.
So, yeah, but yeah, have a good night.
Good luck
All right,
now, Touring News.
All right, Tori.
Later, man. Yeah, take it easy.
And then
Man, he's one nice guy.
the conservatives took back over.
What a sacrifice.
I don't think if
not be able to stream.
If Cenk won, I don't think it would hurt the party at all. I think Cenk has his heart in the right place. I think Cenk wants to make change, and he's authentic. You're not buying that?
I think he's authentic. I think he believes what he believes. My problem is that I think his role in the party is he would have a very strange role in the party. While I do love the rabble rousers, trust me, I love Huey Long as much as the next guy. I feel there has to be an amount of you do not constantly trash everybody you're about to be working with. You do not constantly trash people when you want to bring bills with them, pass bills with them. If you're up there calling Nancy Pelosi corrupt, and then you want to go to her and be like, actually, we should get this healthcare for all legislation, and it's not productive. It's not a good thing. Trust me, I despise a lot of people I have to end up working with when it comes to their political beliefs. A lot of them wonderful people off that. When it comes to political beliefs, I despise it. I sometimes have to work with those people on some things we agree with, and other times we don't. I've worked with people that libertarians who are way out to where I would ever believe on stuff when it comes to Yemen that I wouldn't have ever worked with them if we were in a normal setting, like a normal progressive setting. So I just don't know if Cenk would be willing to do that when he's literally calling every single person in a position of power corrupt. And I don't think he has the filter to do it once he's in power. While I think he would be more politically aligned with me once he got in there, I don't know if he could be productive due to those reasons. I don't know. I'm very hesitant. I've worked very, very hard to have the beliefs I have and have a very decent relation with what we consider the state establishment. And I don't think he would be able to do that once he got in power.
Wait a minute. When you say you worked very hard to have the beliefs you have, are you saying your beliefs result from anything other than moral luck?
No. I said I worked very, very hard to have the relationship I had with the political establishment that I have in my state.
My mistake.
And I've had to tread some very fine lines with having a good relationship with the very strong progressive community and that establishment. And somehow I'm looked upon positively by both factions, and I work very hard not to screw that up.
Well, Dylan, I tip my hat to you. You just hit the hornet's nest of the progressive movement, and they're going to come after you. So thank you. I'm there, man. They hate me for bashing, saying one bad thing about Cenk. How dare I?
I mean, like,
I think not Bernie Sanders. He's one guy with one show on one network. I mean, certainly like big guy, but you can't have a disagree with him or disagreeing with Cenk Uygur.
He's the leader. He's the leader of the Justice Dems, isn't he? Which runs like AOC and Ilhan Omar and all that.
Yeah. How many? Let's see how many elections they've won in.
They're dominating.
Let's see how many.
To be fair, Justice Democrats have basically perceived power becomes power. If Justice Democrats are one of the most well-known names in progressive politics, and people have swarmed around them ever since the AOC victory. Now they seem
to do very well in Democratic districts that are already Democratic.
Yes, that's their goal. That's what the whole point of progressive Democrats is, to move the party to the left. So that's their whole thing. Now, recently they want to get their win percentage up when it comes to overall, because they used to endorse just a ton of people recently, and I know never mind. But
it seems like, just from what I read recently, in the races they ran in 2018, their win percentage outside of those Democratic districts was 0.
Yeah, they endorsed too many people, and
but even if they endorsed fewer, it would still be 0.
Well, no, that's not true. That we don't know that necessarily, because when you endorse a ton of people, the amount of advising time and investment into certain campaigns is divided amongst more people. If you're able to put more money into certain campaigns, I can tell you from my work with 21st Century Democrats that you do not want to over-endorse if you're not just doing it for the name, if you're actually doing it to put money in there. And when it came to 21st Democrats, when it came to AOC in that era, they weren't really a big name outside of the progressive circles if you ran in Kyle Kulinski. Now they're a bigger name. Now they're trying to consolidate their holdings and invest strategically.
Well, and I'll remind people that AOC stood up and voted for Nancy Pelosi proudly for Speaker of the House. So, got to play ball.
Got to play ball to an extent. You have to. At the end of the day, if I have to play ball, if it means that I stop this slaughter in Yemen or stop this thing over here, I'm proud to do so.
Yep. And Cenk would be a human hand grenade in Congress, not even with the Republicans.
It'd be fun, though. It would be fun.
He wouldn't even get that far. He would be just such a ruckus in the Democratic caucus. It would be tough.
Okay, well, let me ask.
Right.
So, do most?
Bela, welcome.
Well, hold on. One second. So we have Bella joining us. Thanks for joining us. We had Turing not be able to make it tonight, so thanks for being able to fill that spot. And go ahead.
Huh? Oh, yeah, no problem. Kershimo just had messaged me and was like, hey, there's this thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I can take a break from homework. I need a break.
Puppet master of Twitch.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for filling that spot. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Dude, Sushia, what do you think about the Joe Rogan endorsement?
Here's the dealio. Am I muted? No. I don't really care about Joe Rogan or this conversation. I already said this was my least favorite topic on the topic list, so I just don't really have anything to add.
All right, Mindwaves, having any regrets yet?
Shut the fuck up.
I think it's fantastic, actually. This is great.
I have a lot to say about other topics. I just don't care about this in particular because I'm not a Democrat, so I don't really give a shit about the Democratic primaries. I don't know. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
What about the Republican primary?
Yeah.
Lol.
I was still muted. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. what do
kidding,
you
I
think?
just don't wanna talk.
I
Okay.
think Bill Weld has a chance.
He should. He's a good man.
He's a libertarian. He ran on
Yeah,
libertarian.
it's pretty.
Was that a
pretty-
war criminal behind you, Bastiat?
Oh, getting called out.
That's a wonderful cat who didn't do anything wrong in Yugoslavia. Okay.
Bosnia specifically.
specific.
Bosnia. She was with that brigade. It's in the documents. We have photographs. She should stand
Fake
before the
news.
ICC.
Doctored evidence. Why don't you take that fake news credential and take it to CNN? All right.
Look, all I know is that if we were a member of the ICC, she would be standing trial.
No.
Well,
he's out of here.
Bella, I think we might have talked about this before on a different show, but do you have any thoughts on Joe Rogan's endorsement of Bernie Sanders? Or
I was just like, he has clout, so I mean, it's great. I know we were like kind of beating the topic to death because was on like the Mindseekers podcast, and my TLDR is that's like, hey, I mean, like, he has a big reach, and I see no problem with it. I mean, yeah, he's said some shady stuff, but at the end of the day, like, the Sanders campaign had put out a pretty good like thing. I forget the exact wording of it, but it was like, you know, as the movement grows to be like gets more people in it, we have to share a tent with people that we may or may not completely agree with. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, at this point, what matters is telling people about Sanders, because there's been like, you know, the Bernie blackout and then all the anti-Semitic media publications and everything like that, you know?
Wait, what? Who's anti-Semitic?
Like, you guys, okay. So like whenever they go and like publish pictures of Sanders and articles, you guys notice he's always like this. You know, like it's that like old comical, like the evil like Jew pose. And they've been doing that to AOC as well. Like, they've been trying to go ahead and do coverage of him to make him look like he's like, you know, a sleazy Jew and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know the shirt. I know the recent article. And I will say that either somebody making those should have known when they were making those. Those look really messed up. I can't ever say the intention of an artist. And when you're politically like making somebody like a caricature, you got to extend their features, which means more wrinkles for Bernie, which means he's an old man, which means he's crazy and like waving. I don't know. Maybe some of those just fall into traditional Jewish lines. The one thing that got me though is when I read the article that complained about how Bernie is a Jewish Bolshevik from the roots of. Then that was the closest the most like solid. Like that's no. Calm down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. There's been some weird stuff going on. I feel like it's been getting a little bit better since now like more people are talking about Sanders. I mean, granted, there's always going to be backlash because they're like, he's a socialist. But anyway, like going back to all of it though, it's like I think, yeah, Joe Rogan has been an idiot at times. He said some stuff, but at the end of the day, him supporting Bernie and talking to people on his podcast about Sanders who may or may not have like really heard much about him, I think that's good. So we gotta beat Trump. That's what matters.
I like that he microdoses LSD.
Dude.
He does? What?
That's what I like about him.
Wait, Joe Rogan does?
Yeah.
Oh. I was like, Bernie Sanders?
I was like, wait, Sanders on like.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I know exactly the article or the there was a couple of different covers that were being used by I forget what media outlets that kind of used him in that pose that you're talking about, and then I think they changed it after it was pointed out on Twitter. Yeah, I shared it with the stream, but yeah, I thought that was weird. I don't know how much of a reach that is, but I don't know how intentional those photos are, but.
Yeah, they were doing it to AOC too. Like there was one thing, I forget what the article title was, but like they were showing the comparisons. Like once AOC started getting like more popular, they were doing the same thing, and they would be like, "Oh, like what does the Green New Deal mean?" And it's like her like in that hunched over pose and everything, and then you compare it to like anyone else. Like it's
Wait,
Just
who was
some-
doing this? I missed that at the beginning. I'm sorry. Who was doing this?
It's just been like some media outlets. You know, when you have like a news article and then they'll be like, oh, blah, 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 and then picture of the thing that they're talking about.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if you knew like specifically which one did it.
No, I didn't pay attention to the
Let's see if I
main.
can find you the one on the Jewish.
Yeah, I've seen the claim too, or I've seen the examples too. I mean, yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
it's
It's a
sometimes
little
pretty
bit
cool.
like, really?
Yeah,
You're gonna do that? That's not cool.
yeah.
So,
I know what you mean, man.
mhm.
Same way they treated OJ. You know, just that airbrushed. You know, trying to, you know,
Okay.
make him look sinister. I mean, the man was not convicted, and I think that should be respected.
Okay, so I found the article that I was talking about, and it's called "I Rage at Bernie Sanders, the Last Jewish Bolshevik." And then it talks about how he can't hate him because he knew so many Jewish Bolsheviks from the Soviet Union. And that same news article with Haaretz, which is I believe covers like Israeli news or something. I forget exactly what they cover. I just seen them a lot when talking about Jewish issues and Israeli issues. And then the next article, like 14 days later, someone else on the same website was like, Bernie Sanders is not a Jewish Bolshevik, from the same exact like article, like website.
Yeah, yeah. You can be.
What was the website?
Haaretz. It's Haaretz. But if you just look up Bernie Jewish Bolshevik, is one of the first things that come up.
Oh, jeez.
Which isn't something you should have in your search history, though.
Is that how you get on a watch list? I'm probably already on one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead.
We're
and
all
just,
probably on it. Let's be real here. just for speaking out about politics on like a live platform, we're all on the watch list.
Oh no. All right.
At this point in my life, that would feel like somebody was paying attention.
I'm probably the only one here that's on multiple government watch lists around the world, though.
Hey, as long as it's not the Hillary Foundation or the Clinton Foundation, we're all good, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, the
Then we're
Clinton
safe.
Foundation does excellent work. Check out ClintonFoundation.org. Okay.
Donate.
All right. So let's see. What else was there? Oh, okay. Let's see. As far as the Democratic primary, there was some polling recently that came out that Bernie Sanders is now like in the lead in Iowa, and I think New Hampshire as well. I don't know if you guys saw this. Like, what are you guys' thoughts? Is this like, do you think he's going to win those states? I don't know.
Great news for Trump.
So RCP average is what I always check RCP average because that's usually what I go by. And he's leading in Iowa on RCP average. He's leading in New Hampshire on RCP average by a decent margin. And New Hampshire, it's like a very decent lead.
Mhm.
He is leading in the betting markets, 59% to win the Iowa caucus, and he's 73% to win the New Hampshire primary, 60% to win Nevada, and
60% for
Diamond,
Nevada, really.
Old Diamond Joe is 68% to win South Carolina. So yeah,
I
that's
can't
it. I'll
wait
check out
for-
I'll drop a link here for anybody who wants to check it out.
I can't wait for the Marianne Williamson write-in campaign in South Carolina where she'll sweep the state. I can't wait.
I wonder how much the impeachment trial is going to affect things for Bernie, because though he may be doing good in the polls, this last week or so, he's got 5 days left and he can't be out there. And Iowa's like a real local kind of thing, you know, like really shaking hands. So I think it's all up in the air right now, but it looks like a competition between Biden and Bernie right now.
I mean, like, from what I've seen, I feel like, okay, so Biden, it's going to be Bernie, Klobuchar, and Warren are going to have to be at the hearing, right?
They're sequestered. Yeah.
Leaving Biden there to like stumble around Iowa about what and do whatever that he's going to do there. And like, while I do think Biden is decent politically, I think recently he's been on a media gaffe campaign. I won't bring up his words blunders because I think a lot of that's tied to his stuttering, and I think people have been too aggressive on that considering he has a stutter. But I do think that we're good.
So you don't think being stuck in the Senate is going to affect Bernie's chances at all?
I mean, like, a lot of this polling has come up when he's had to be in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I
think Bernie Sanders has the ground game. He's got the energy. People are actually willing to volunteer. Yeah, people are actually willing to volunteer for him. Nobody's willing to volunteer and go knock doors for Joe Biden.
There's been a lot of cringe stuff from Biden's like campaign on like the internet too. Like it seems really
Oh yeah, like the interactions with the voters. He's had two really cringe like Twitter moments that went viral on Twitter where he's like pounding a guy on a chest and then he's like mocking this reporter, and then like today he like he's like told voters not to vote for him. Seriously, twice recently he's told voters to not vote for him, like go vote for somebody else or whatever.
Like usually it is always like
I
go
saw
vote
that.
for Bernie, and then those voters are like, okay, then I will. And now Bernie's leading. And now Bernie's leading because
that guy was actually a Bloomberg supporter, wasn't he? Like one of the dudes in the clip that he like he tried to like, oh well, you just vote for Bernie, or like you're just a Bernie supporter, and he's like, well actually no, I think I support Bloomberg. And he's or like that's really crazy.
I think the reason why
It's so funny too. It's like really funny because like Joe Biden is probably like advanced liberal politics so much more than Bernie Sanders ever has in his life or ever will, even if he is president. But it's super funny that Joe Biden gaps all the time and says stupid stuff, yo. It's really funny because like, you know,
you're a Joe Biden supporter.
Yeah, Joe Biden, as in the man who actually
you guys are right.
should win the election,
yeah.
and beat Donald Trump.
Okay.
Actually, radical rather than the socialist guy who may win the primary, going to get trounced by President Trump. I mean, just because we vote for him doesn't mean I want him to win the primary.
Yeah, you better get those pro Bernie.
Get ready for what? Get ready for a man who's promised a bunch of stuff he knows full well he's not going to be able to do.
Yeah,
get ready for that, as opposed to Joe Biden, who might. Maybe through his years of experience in Congress getting stuff done, maybe get one or two progressive things pushed a little bit forward. Yeah, no, it's really funny, though, that he's losing and the Bernie Sanders, who's not going to get anything done outside of what he can do in the executive branch, looks like he's going to win in Iowa. So, I mean, it's funny. Yeah, it's hilarious.
The other thing to consider real quick is the
he's role-playing as Dan real quick.
People over. So if you just, I mean, this is cherry picking a little bit, but if we use the 2014 elections that we had, people over 60 have 3 times the turnout of young people. And, you know, I mean, I know there's not a lot of people going and campaigning for Biden or Bloomberg. I admit that there's nowhere near the level of excitement that Bernie has. Unless young people are going to fucking 3x their rates of 2014, which is possible, they could. You know, it's not going to matter as much. Old people just don't give a fuck about Bernie. That's a fact. Like Biden, like these are. I mean, you can't wrong that. Biden is a fucking stranglehold.
People are going to vote for Bernie because of Social Security or something, even though all the polls show that older people are way more skeptical of the socialist label and of all the other stuff. Old people don't want free stuff for everyone. They want free stuff for them.
Yeah, I think it's very unlikely that you're going to expect.
Whether you believe that or not, old people seem to start to be disagreeing with you.
No, they don't. This is completely false.
Oh, no.
This is untrue. Old people overwhelmingly are Biden versus Bernie.
Yep, you're right. But recently, it seems to be there. At least a percentage of them have moved over from Biden to Bernie. Or we wouldn't have seen these polling shifts out of completely nowhere.
And that's true in my area.
Polling usually actually poll older people and a larger amount to account for the fact that older people turn out more.
I mean, possibly, but I think
that's not possibly. That's a thing.
And they
I looked at the Real Clear Politics. What was that recent poll that was showing that Bernie was winning? It was showing something like 80% of young people were voting for Bernie. And then they did the same thing for Biden. Okay, but we're talking about like single digit at best changes of older people switching from Biden to Bernie. And that I think is even a stretch. I'd be surprised if it was 1%.
I mean, he vacuumed up some Elizabeth Warren supporters because Elizabeth Warren has been unmasked as you know, as I guess, snake. You know, whatever the lefties want to call her, a snake or somebody.
And that's actually a good
thing about our healthcare policy or whatever. He's just vacuumed up her people.
Snake and now he's just killed her.
There it is.
What's going to happen if Bernie does get to a point where he's able to knock out Elizabeth Warren and she considers conceding? Because of still the animosity between the two of them, I almost wonder if Warren would go and endorse Biden. And all of the people who are Warren stans would basically do it as a result because they fucking hate Bernie now. Like, dude, we saw, I mean, Bella, weren't you one of those people like that just couldn't stand the way the establishment treated your other candidate?
Yeah.
He said, fuck it, and you voted for Trump. There might be a lot of them say, fuck that, I'm not voting for fucking Bernie, I'm a Biden stan now. It's possible.
Yeah,
you know,
and
Biden's
also
done nothing
Bela.
wrong.
I don't really know.
Sorry.
No worries,
I'm really
sorry.
gonna change their opinion.
I'm
and
pretty
vote for
sure
somebody they think is,
likely
like,
voters,
really
and
terrible.
that's what a lot of these polls are that still show Bernie leading, and a lot of times not leading with old people, but making gains in old people. Likely voters, which is specifically supposed to talk about people who are supposed to vote when it comes to the Democratic primary, are showing Bernie leading in these states.
Yeah, and something I want to note too, like I live in a really so I'm in like the rich old person retiree areas. You know, it's really conservative where I am. But I've been canvassing, and already a lot of the people that I've been talking to have already been Bernie supporters, which has been really surprising because I'm here like, we're in like, you know, you have no reason to support him, but they do. And when I talk to them, they're just like, yeah, like they like that he is like more well spoken and doesn't have like a lot of the weird stuff that's been like surrounding Biden. And a lot of them were Trump supporters, but it's because of the impeachment trials that they're like, this is bullshit. Like a lot of them were Republicans that have just now registered to be Democrats in order to vote for Sanders. And I found that like mind-boggling. I'm here like, you're making my job way too easy, like to go and canvass for Bernie. You're already supporting him. So that's interesting.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that Biden supporters don't answer the door.
I mean, I gotta be honest.
Why the hell do they care? They're probably like, I know what this kid's after.
I mean, you know, Bastiat, wouldn't you agree also, there's so much emphasis, I'm hearing it nonstop, like every day now, like Bernie's ahead in Iowa, Bernie's ahead in New Hampshire, Bernie, you know, and it's like,
he seems to be.
Yeah, these like, you know, New Hampshire, like these in like insanely white like places.
Well,
like I don't think
the theory is though, like, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I mean,
like
Joe
tell me about what's going to happen in like
Joe Biden's like great,
Nevada.
Well, he is.
Great hope is that Nevada he's ahead there too, but in South Carolina
California.
he's not. But I think the hope is that after he catches,
no, just
wait, in Nevada he's
the
ahead.
hope is that after he catches fire, no, the hope among like as far as I know, Bernie Sanders maybe in California, but every other state I haven't seen much of. Biden seems to be dominating all of them. But I think the hope is that after some wins, he's gonna like catch on and it's going to snowball. I think that's the hope.
Well, that was the Obama strategy.
And by the way, Biden's ahead in Nevada. Mindwaves, eat it.
Is he?
Yeah.
Hey, it wasn't my argument. It was Bastiat's.
I'm not so sure about that.
I'm looking at real clear politics right now.
I love Bernie.
Hey,
I
it
love
wasn't my
Bernie
fact.
Bastiat, but he is not ahead in Nevada. But I will say that this is literally Obama's election strategy. After he fucking smashed Iowa, he went on to smash everything else. Hillary Clinton was supposed to smash everything. But because of that, he was able to use that to snowball because when everybody else was like, wow, maybe this guy could take it. Maybe we could give change a chance. And then that's how Obama became president. And hey, I mean, if Bernie can do the same thing, then he can do the same thing.
Well,
yeah, you're right.
I've said this before. Do you think we're on a swing? So, let me put it this way: there's swings in thing. Right now, I think if you were to poll many people who are Democratic voters, you say, "What do you want?" They would say, "I want to return to normalcy. Just get me back. I don't want to hear about politics every day in the news. I just want shit to be normal." So I would say that much more so that last election was the chance for Bernie. People are like, you know what? We've had this shit the same. It's boring. Let's make a real fucking change and get better. But after Trump and this craziness right now, I think there's so much of a heavy push from most people who are not the extreme online left who say, you know, just fucking just a push to normalcy again. The status quo.
There's a legitimate population who just return to normalcy. But my thing is, are they a large enough percentage of the Democratic Party to actually pull it through? And with their motto being, I want things to be normal. Not to mention, what does normal mean to them? Bloomberg could be normal. Amy Klobuchar, if you want somebody who screams normal, the Amy Klobuchar is somebody you can give. Hey, then there's Biden.
That's actually a really good point.
Well,
here.
yeah, I mean,
if Elizabeth Warren's been blown the hell out, like, what about when all the not normal people other than Biden are gone? Like, and then there's no Klobuchar, no Buttigieg, no, I guess if Warren drops out, like, what is it still going to be like really close between Bernie and?
It would depend on the electoral votes, but at that point, if it's shown that Bernie could win, and then maybe for them, like they see him as the one who's best to beat Trump, or return to normalcy through Bernie, or maybe because some people like think like Harkdan that Bernie's not going to get anything done, so therefore getting Bernie in there, it'll just be a return to normal of an ineffective Democratic president like Obama during his second term. Who knows?
Amen, brother.
Wait,
yeah, I don't know.
I'm looking at this Iowa thing. Sanders is winning, but barely? I would have expected like a much bigger lead.
Are you looking at RCP polling, or what are you looking at?
At the 538 thing.
Yeah,
538.
538.
Yeah, like this is 1% lead over Biden. That's it.
I saw a lot more than 1%. I mean, maybe it's because you're doing 538, but RCP had him like 3 to 4.
He has a 3-point lead, and he surged down from like well below Biden. I think that's pretty huge.
Not to mention, like a lot of these
it was pretty huge though. Like when Elizabeth Warren was like the leading candidate for a while, right? That was pretty huge.
It was huge, and
we didn't talk about that.
And then Mayor Pete had a big surge at one point.
That's true, but big. You know what? At the end of the day,
but this time it's going to stick. This is
the point is this time the election like the primaries are right around the corner, right?
That's
like
it.
Yeah,
it's you know what?
Days
I
reach,
could have
I mean.
if I'm running for office, everybody can hate me every day of the week, but if they love me election day, that's all I care about.
That's true.
That's how you win.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I'll say this on what is it? The predicted.
I love my voters. So don't hate me.
Bernie in first place. I mean, I can't. I mean, that's a very small thing, but I feel like
Dan, when I mentioned Nevada, I was thinking about the betting markets where he's ahead there, but you were absolutely right in the polls. Like he's still not.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think these are pretty liberal strongholds. I mean, New Hampshire and shit like that.
But they're the first to vote in the nation, and they send a message, man. They matter. I mean, that's how Obama got it.
I feel like we're going to be at a point right now where we're going to have a lot of Bernie fans complaining that the DNC fucked them, and then Biden's going to get it. I mean, this seems. If Bernie loses again this election, do you think he'll run again in 4 more years, or do you think this is your one shot and then forever?
90 years old.
I think this will be it. You know.
Yeah, no, what I think is going to happen and what I personally hope happens is that Bernie Sanders wins Iowa, maybe Warren or Buttigieg wins New Hampshire, Joe Biden wins South Carolina, and then Sanders picks up Nevada, and you have like kind of this field maintain itself, and it doesn't go down to a couple of candidates, and we have people getting good enough results in all of these states to where they think they can keep going, and then Super Tuesday hits, and then boom, they all get enough delegates, they all want to keep going, and then we have this long, drawn out, vicious fight.
Do you really think that somebody besides Bernie can really win New Hampshire at this point? Definitely Buttigieg or Warren. I mean, it's pretty solid. I mean, it's almost a solid Bernie
wins both, though. Even if Bernie wins both, and then Biden wins South Carolina, you could see this thing get drawn out further. As long as like Warren is getting second place in some of these, or
after the first round. I mean, if we remember the Republican primary, after the first round, anybody who didn't get those first 2 states, man, they dipped, and they dipped hard, man. So if Warren doesn't end up winning any of these first states, I see like honestly a crash, right?
But what about Bloomberg and Steyer? Because Bloomberg and Steyer can keep going without any support whatsoever.
That's true. But I'll be honest, but they're not taking anything.
They're not taking anything away from Bernie.
What Well, yeah.
No.
Well,
but they might hang in there.
I want to get. Yeah,
they're only gonna help Bernie.
So Sushi, also, what do you think of this recent polling from for Bernie Sanders in Iowa and New Hampshire? Well, I want your take on this.
Oh, I have nothing to say about that. I was just gonna say New Hampshire is obviously in favor of Vermin Supreme. It always has been.
Close.
So I think that we can all acknowledge that.
I
actually met Vermin Supreme in New Hampshire.
That was your worst meme.
You met him? Really?
Yeah, I met him. He was handing out. He was at a Yang event, handing out dollars signed by himself to kind of meme about the $1,000.
That's really cool.
Sweet. I love that.
I want to say this.
Look how much influence he has in New Hampshire. Do you guys not see this? It's so obvious.
Hey, if he's buying votes, man, you know, maybe.
Literally buying votes.
Pro marketing skills right there.
I gotta say though, one of the main things that's propping up Biden when it comes to him is that he's the best person to beat Trump, and a lot of people think that. Genuinely, if he loses to the crazy socialists on his second wind in this election in both Iowa, which is always the one people look at, Iowa's the important one when we look at the first round, and New Hampshire, just for symbolic reasons when talking Iowa, that's gonna do a massive blow to him if he can't even beat the crazy whack job socialists. And even if you don't support Bernie, you might have to shift it to other candidates. And if Bernie raises above the crowd, there you go.
I mean, if he doesn't win because all these other normies won't drop out, even though the dream is dead at that point, like Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar and all them. I mean, if they stick around, they're only taking votes from Joe Biden. So, like, yeah, if Bernie Sanders wins through that, what does that prove? Other than that, the normie Democrats just you know.
Yeah, but then Bernie won.
Consolidate quick enough. I mean, that
the
doesn't.
thing-
That doesn't. I don't know that shows anything about electability.
Well,
right?
the thing is that if it comes to Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden will win, because the dirty little secret about Bernie Sanders is that most of his support is from rich, white, privileged people. The African American support is much higher for Joe Biden, and the same with Latino support. That's a big chunk of big chunk of the Democratic base. So
Latinos are mostly supporting Bernie. All polling I've seen has indicated that.
Let me
Really?
throw a little wrinkle in there, though. Let's throw a little wrinkle. Joe Biden gets called as a witness, or his son, in the impeachment trial.
Put $50 on that.
Yeah, that
shady stuff gets revealed, or at least the perception of it. What happens now?
I guess I could be wrong about the Latino one. I'm sure on the African American support for Biden is a lot higher than Bernie.
But I mean, Bernie sweeps all youth groups though too.
I think I'm really important is right, and it looks like, judging by the news of today, that we're getting closer to having witnesses, and if that happens, then they are calling the Bidens.
They're going straight for the Bidens.
I'm not an impeachment watcher. There's too much foreign policy for me to even get like a step into that. But seeing somebody call on Fox News John Bolton a tool of the left, holy shit! My entire career has been fighting this dude's ideology, and then you call him a tool of the left. The dude who literally, if it wasn't for him, Soleimani would still be alive. Holy shit! You kidding me?
Right.
They turned on him real quick.
How do you feel about that, lecture fan? Does that kind of messaging feel like how do you feel about that? Like, I mean, you must know he's obviously not a tool of the left, but
no, I think it's people on the right getting tricked by what's most likely fake news. I mean, this is a New York Times story. I mean, how many times have they been wrong and false and shown to have lied and shown to have misled the American people with these reports about what's allegedly in John Bolton's book? So I think I think all of this reporting on what John Bolton said is most likely false. I don't believe it for a second. I'm still waiting to see the actual book by John Bolton. So to the extent people are saying that on Fox News, they got tricked. They fell for it this time.
You think Bolton is just trying to
fell for what? What did they fall for? Exactly.
Tricks by Democrats.
The Democrats. The Democrats. Well, he's selling a hell of a lot of books, so something's going on. But he did put a statement on his website saying, "I'll testify if you subpoena me."
Do we want to talk about impeachment then? That was one of the topics. This is the one I like least follow, so I know some of you guys have been following it pretty intensely. But if you guys want to talk about it,
yeah. I was commenting on it. I was like, I wonder why we're not talking about impeachment. And then it seems to me that like it's not a great story for Democrats to want to talk about right now. So I figured that was the reason. I thought that's why it wasn't coming up.
No, I just don't think a lot of people are watching, but I'm happy to talk about it. But I don't feel like most people are watching it. So it's going to get exciting this Friday, though. A lot of people are going to be tuning in on Friday when they vote on witnesses.
Yeah, man. If they get some John Bolton in there, that's going to be good.
We're talking Bolton and Biden's and Chalupa and you name it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Bolton is no beta. He is AAA alpha. He is gonna be dropping some bombs, except instead of the Middle East, he's gonna be dropping them on President Trump.
I just really hope I'm not called to testify for my ties to Iran. I just really hope so.
John Bolton clips, if you guys ever get a chance to watch John Bolton clips on YouTube of his time when he was at the United Nations, are so good.
From what I heard, I not to interrupt, but I heard news today that Mitch McConnell said that the GOP doesn't have the votes to be able to block the impeachment witnesses. So that's interesting.
It's been crazy that they've been wanting to block all this anyway. Like, that's what's been like, whoa, really? Like, this is supposed to be like a hearing in a trial, and then you're going through all these links in order to be as like yeah.
Well,
it's supposed to be impartial, and clearly
they don't have the votes to block debate on the witnesses, but specific witnesses nobody knows right now. But it's all for show. They know nobody's paying attention, so the faster they get this over with, the better it is for everybody, including people like Bernie Sanders. Doesn't want to sit there drinking milk and water. Like, it's boring as shit. They can't have cell phones, no computers.
Yeah, that's so strange. I was reading about this.
Available?
The
You can bring milk.
Senate procedures from historical precedent. The only other thing anybody's ever drank on the Senate floor, I think, during impeachment is eggnog, milk, and water.
Yeah.
But they don't regularly serve the eggnog.
Got to keep up with those dairy industry handouts.
Oh yeah.
True.
Shout out to the farmers.
No shout out to the farmers. They should.
I mean, they're getting all of our
handouts any more than
subsidies,
anyone
so
else.
I mean.
No thanks.
What, Bastiat?
Yeah.
You being opposed to government handouts? What?
Yeah. What's the point of that? We could just import
Since
it
when?
cheaper. There's no benefit to it. It's not like free healthcare where we're like, well, I guess unfortunately it seems like there's just not a better way to do it. But we don't need to subsidize agriculture. We could just
You literally compared food, healthcare, and water and electricity.
Yeah,
earlier.
I was asking what you
I don't
think.
know, lecture fan.
I was asking what you think about those issues. Just to be clear, I was asking what you think about those issues because I'm saying there are quantifiable differences between them. But you were talking about free markets, and as a big fan of free markets, I want to see what you thought about them.
Free markets.
You were saying they were the same. You were saying the same.
I think food could be 100% a free market, but healthcare.
You were justifying government intervention in healthcare by comparing it to food and water and electricity.
No. The point I was not justifying it like that. I was justifying it by saying there are healthcare just because of the nature of how it exists. There are some things about it that just I don't know could ever be functionally competitive. But food, I think, could be 100% competitive.
Still pretty rich to hear an Andrew Yang supporter talk about he doesn't want a government handout for anything.
Well, that's a whole lot different. It's one thing, as the great Milton Friedman said, to give people money for being poor. It's another thing to give them money for being farmers instead of money for being poor. One of those is a special interest handout, and the other one, unless you think the poor are special interest, is not. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, fuck. Was there anything else about impeachment you guys wanted to touch on?
I have to define. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say I saw somewhere that apparently Trump's team hired Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer as well. So that looks weird.
Alan Dershowitz.
Yeah.
Alan Dershowitz is OJ's lawyer too. I mean, Dershowitz has a long history of being representing defendants and.
Well, the weirdest one was Ken Starr. That was the weird one because I think Dershowitz said he voted for Hillary Clinton, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It's just a weird combo of lawyers Trump hired. It doesn't make any sense.
Why not? That probably only helps his.
All I know is that Alan Dershowitz has totally only defended the innocent. That's all I know.
So what? So what if he's defended? So what if he hasn't? Who cares? That doesn't make him a bad attorney.
Come on, I'm just joking. Come on.
If anything, that makes him good, right? I mean,
yeah.
No,
true.
the impeachment is fascinating. Trust me, but it's being tuned out by a lot of people. It's very dry. We've been watching it on my channel. It's very hard to watch, but it's important stuff, and it is keeping all the senators there. It fits into 2020 races and all that. But
when's it going to get juicy? I want your prediction.
Yeah.
Friday, yeah, right.
Friday's going to get interesting. Look for some big ass headlines. A lot of action.
That's when we'll know about whether they're going to have witnesses.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure we'll talk about that next week. Let's see. So moving on from impeachment, then, unless anybody else wants to touch on that, we could talk about Space Force.
Dude, I want to hear what.
I would love to talk about Space Force.
You should take point.
There you go. Go for it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you.
I think that a lot of people do not know about Space Force, and that's why people care so much. That's my take.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I think that a lot of people don't realize that Space Force is essentially just Space Command. They're going to be doing all the exact same things. People are really anxious that it's like some crazy new thing that has to do with like wars or something, when in reality, they do a lot of really important things, and they'll just be able to keep continuing doing those things. But since they're their own like branch now, they'll get a lot more funding to like keep running things like our GPS, etc. Also, I don't give a shit about their uniforms. The other thing is there's actually still going to be like under the Air Force, so I don't know. I think everybody's just freaking out, and it's not really a big deal. It's just like countries like Russia and China already have space forces, so it's not really a big deal that we're like making this its own branch, which should have been done a while ago, since they already have so much.
I mean, don't you feel like the militarization of space? I mean, that's not a big deal?
That's not exactly what Space Force is, though.
I mean, what else could it be but a further step toward? I mean, what Mike Pence was talking about? We want to have space.
It's already been militarized.
I mean, is that something we should just?
But what I think is
push
funny about it is that this is just classic government activity. Let's create another bureaucracy, create another department, split up. Okay, yeah, we've already got people working on this, but let's put them in a different building and let's give them a new name and like think it solves all the problems to have these, different bureaucracies. And
the only things that are
in
changing
10
from
years,
Space Command though are not. That's not that many things that are changing.
Well,
The only things that are changing is the uniforms, the ranking structure that they have within Space Command that is now changing in Space Force, and the training that they're going through. That is essentially the only things that are like changing from Space Command to Space Force.
I thought they wanted like 15,000.
That's literally it. I read like so many articles, you guys. I swear, I did my homework.
But the marketing, I mean, Trump is a
Don't we
marketer, so the marketing on this is genius.
Well, I love what the Democrats got in exchange for it, which was paid family leave for 2 million federal workers. I mean, that's awesome. That must have pissed you off, Lecture.
I'm okay. I'm okay with it if it's like federal workers only. But the problem is it's being pushed to have the government force that on private employers too.
You can't take it away now ever, too. You know what I mean? That's an entitlement now. Those people are going to expect that.
I mean, that's a great example of why these entitlement programs are so difficult. I mean, you're absolutely right. Once you get them, it's super hard to roll them back. That doesn't necessarily mean they're good.
I just find it funny that like, how are we gonna get paid family leave? I know, Space Force,
right?
That's right, space.
Really, I've always thought that Donald Trump being in office would give the Democrats an opportunity to get some really awesome stuff. So to me, this is Exhibit A. Like, awesome! Now we got paid family leave for 2 million federal workers. You can have your Space Force. Go ahead, buddy.
It is kind of interesting to imagine what might be possible if President Trump like had a totally Democratic Congress, but not so much they could override him on everything. And things might be very different. I don't know.
I mean, we probably wouldn't have gotten over 100 environmental deregulations. So,
well, he might have like, it would be interesting to imagine what he would extract in exchange for like, a lot of stuff, or what he would demand they call it. Like, there's this settlement in the West Bank, or not in West Bank, in the Golan Heights, in the part that I guess Israel is now annexed, called Trump Heights.
Yeah.
And there's this base in Poland that they were gonna build. I don't think they ever officially named it this, but the Polish, as part of the proposal, to put a U.S. military base in Poland, we're gonna name it Fort Trump. So maybe in exchange for like a golden statue, we'd have Medicare for all. Who knows?
I need the best and biggest statue in the middle of DC, and then you can have your health care.
Well,
I like that.
You almost got to pass the citizenship for the DACA kids out of Trump for the wall. That was pretty
true.
good.
Oh my God! And then Stephen Miller ruined everything.
We were so close to get $25 billion for the wall and a path to citizenship for all these kids. Like, man,
is there anybody in here who wouldn't make the trade of the wall for like something like that?
I would in a second. Those kids are so valuable.
Like the wall with that ultimately.
Well, that's Trump literally offered the Democrats that. They refused that.
No, it was Stephen Miller convinced him to reject the deal.
It was a bipartisan.
No, it was Trump deal. No, Trump offered them DACA in exchange for the wall, and they said no. I think they wanted like citizenship for all illegal aliens.
Well, I don't know about that deal, but I remember the deal was that the Democrats and Trump had come to an agreement on a pathway for citizenship for the DACA recipients. But then he rejected it because it didn't also include restrictions on legal immigration, even though the deal was the full $2,500 in exchange for the pathway to citizenship for the immigrants living in the United States. And then he came back to the table after Stephen Miller got involved and said, "Oh no, we also need restrictions on legal immigration." And then it happened.
That is not what I remember happening at the time. I have a totally different memory of what happened with the immigration.
Okay.
It's because Breitbart doesn't report it that way.
All right. Let's see. Earlier this month, this is from a story written at the time. The president proposed a compromise that would have included limited protections for DACA recipients in exchange for wall funding, but it was swiftly rejected by House Democrats. Unable to strike a deal and lacking leverage, Trump on Friday signed a continuing resolution to reopen the government for 3 weeks. Resolution was, never mind. This is something else. I got to find this.
Yeah, the only thing I had heard was the same thing that LC was saying that the Democrats had rejected it, but I'm not sure. I read it a while ago, so I don't even remember what news source it was from. So I totally thought it was the same thing of like Trump was doing this, and then the Democrats were like, "No, fuck you!" Like,
yeah, there's somebody in my chat just linked me a CNN story from January 17, 2018. Trump reiterates he wants DACA as long as it comes with border wall. So Trump at the time was very publicly offering to do DACA in exchange for the wall, and that's.
Well, I think what he says he's going to do
is
a lot different when he actually gets pushed on it, right? When push comes to shove, I think he declined the deal, right? That's what really matters. He can say one thing, but it doesn't really matter.
No, he didn't. That's what we're saying is he didn't. No, he was the one making the deal. He was one making the offer. It was Democrats that refused it. Not that it could have probably got through Congress anyway, but certainly Trump was very public multiple times, and at the last moment, at the important moment, was willing to do DACA for the wall, and the Democrats refused because they knew that if Trump actually got the wall, then it's game over for them in 2020 because that was one of Trump's main promises. They refused to allow Trump to have such a big win. Is that it's 100% politics. These are Democrats that for decades and decades had supported a wall, and then when push comes to shove, they refused to do it because they knew it would have substantial impact on Trump being able to win re-election.
How is it game over if he gets the wall? Like who was going to vote for him for the wall is like, you know what? He didn't get that wall
because that was his biggest campaign promise, and to be able to say promises made, promises kept is huge for a president run for re-election. Especially when it's one of the most important issues to American voters.
To American voters who were already going to vote for him anyway. Like, are you telling me there's somebody out there who is like, you know what? We didn't get that wall. That's it. I'm voting.
It's like, I don't know, man. Like he built that wall. I guess I now need to register Republican. Like, no,
I mean,
I don't.
That can't be a real.
No, I don't think.
What are you talking about? You're literally saying that whether or not Trump keeps his #1 campaign promise has no bearing on his re-election. Give me a break.
Yes, as he has said, he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and his supporters wouldn't care. I mean, so the fact that he doesn't have the wall,
like how he like went and said that, and no one was like
already. Do you remember the part?
Well, all I have to say is
where Mexico was going to pay for it, and now we're talking about the Democrats paying for it, basically in exchange for the DACA hostages. I mean, it's like it's already way past like reality at that point.
Well, dude, everybody knew that Mexico wasn't going to pay for it. That's the most ridiculous line to bring up.
How can he?
Trump supporters actually.
How can
Trump
you
supporters? You don't get Trump. You guys don't get Trump. It's like Trump supporters. When we listen to Trump, we know when he's saying something important. We know when he's saying something to trigger the liberals, and he's an expert at triggering leftists.
So you got to be able to speak
exactly
Trumpese, dude.
I got you. I got you. So when it is obviously ridiculous, it's obviously a meme. It can't just be like a bad idea.
So when Bernie Sanders says Medicare for all, then he's not being serious. He just
what he means is actually, like it's going to be a reasonable healthcare plan that we're going to get passed with a majority. We're going to try and get bipartisan.
Right. And so when we say
by Medicare for all.
Yeah, we can play that game
Mexico,
too.
Mexico is paying for it through the USMCA.
Oh my God. The tariffs that 100% of the tariffs are being paid by Americans.
Even lecture fans laughing at that one.
that was a good line though.
I guarantee tens of thousands of people at least voted for Donald Trump because they thought they're getting a free wall. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: is there any way you could make some future predictions on what's a troll and what's not? Yeah.
Well, if you tell me what he's going to say, I'll tell you.
How about that third term?
Is that a troll?
That's a troll. Although I do support a constitutional amendment to grant a one-time exception to allow the president to have 3 terms.
Would you?
Oh yeah.
You would support Donald Trump having a 3rd term.
Just for him,
but if we had a constitutional amendment for a one-time exception to where Donald Trump could have a 3rd term.
How would you determine that's necessary? Would that be something that has to be voted on by Congress or what?
Yeah, you're talking about the amendment process, not
the amendment.
That's
read it in, right?
Yeah, you'd have to amend the Constitution.
I mean, that's not like a I mean, as long as you're not saying actually the way that it's written means he could do it already. I mean, I don't feel like that's I disagree. I wouldn't want him for a 3rd term.
Well,
I don't think that's a crazy position to take.
Lecture,
Right.
Do you think he deserves a third term? That he's been truly robbed of his first term?
I do, yeah. I think the hoax that the Democrats ran with the Trump Russia collusion, and then with this impeachment hoax, two of the greatest scams ever run on the American people by the Democrats, has made it so. Yeah, I would support a third term.
But he's got a lot done. I mean, like,
He
so.
has. Yep.
So I don't think so. When people are like he was robbed, and it's like he still has done a lot. So I don't think he's been robbed of anything. So it doesn't warrant a third term, right? I mean, if you're gonna go,
That's fair. That's fair.
Well,
yeah, and also the thing is too, like, so this is something that my professor, like, we get into political debates often because I think I've had him for multiple semesters, so I can actually talk politics with him. This kind of mentality of like, oh, like we need to go and fix the amendment so that way Trump can have more terms or limited terms. It's showing that we're having a cultural shift in us wanting to revert back into a monarchy. And with the way that like the cultural narrative has been going, my professor's been predicting if we keep staying along this path and people continuously wanting to keep being like Trump forever, Trump forever, Trump forever, and they're legitimately 100% okay with that, it shows that they no longer want to be involved in democracy, and that our like republic or democracy is going to be gone within the next 100 years or so. And the people will just be fine with it. Then it's going to be a repeating process of like, oh, like we have a king now again. And I guess this is fine because I don't fucking care about politics. I never really wanted with it. I'm happy. I'm in my comfort zone. I'm squishy. Like this is what happened with China. Like before the Opium War happened. Like they had everything they wanted and they were fine with the way that the government was dealing with things. So that's what... like his prediction. I'm like, well, I mean, I can kind of see that when people are like, he needs more. We need to amend the Constitution for that. People want a God King now.
Doesn't it feel like maybe? I mean, there as much as I think term limits are a good thing. I mean, like Canada, the UK. Maybe these parliamentary countries have term limits, but I don't think so. I mean, you could just keep on running for prime minister forever, I think, and you just, I mean, they just usually don't last for that long because people get sick of them.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to do that, we would have to get rid of the Electoral College and be an actual democracy, I think, for it to work in America. So if we wanted to be like, you can have forever term limits, we would need to remove that middleman and have it be an actual, like, everyone gets a say on that.
I mean, is it not an actual democracy? I mean, I don't like the Electoral College, but I mean, is it really like undemocratic that you have to win 50 small elections instead of like one big one?
Where my faithless electors at?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
No, I'd be willing to compromise. First of all, I don't necessarily agree with that prediction about the monarchy. I think what's more likely to happen is kind of what you've seen with other civilizations that have fallen throughout history. But
what do you mean?
But I was
Anarchy will
gonna.
rise.
There's a
though,
lot
and
there,
it'll be
but
better. I promise.
What do you mean by that, though?
What I was gonna say, I would be willing to compromise on the amendment and actually say instead of just Trump getting a third term, we could actually have an amendment that says if you get impeached but not removed, you get a third term.
No, because the point of impeachment is that you did bad. Like,
dude, you are
doesn't that
getting
defeat the purpose of?
I can't tell what's a meme.
So you'd be cool with Nixon and Clinton having a third term?
Nixon didn't get impeached. He quit before.
Yeah, Nixon
he quit
didn't get
before
impeached.
getting impeached.
Also, just to be clear,
I'd like that Clinton third term though.
I realize the Electoral College is. They're like, well, we tried and she didn't close the deal.
Oh,
the Electoral College is undemocratic because it does. Your votes are not worth the same amount.
Well,
So
yeah,
that's
because we
pretty
specifically made it undemocratic because pure democracy sucks.
Dude, pure democracy. What do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by first of all pure democracy?
That's why we have that's why we're a constitutional republic. Is because straight democracy is terrible. The straight democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting over what's for dinner.
So, like, basically, the House of Representatives is two wolves and a sheep.
Well, the House of Representatives doesn't exist on its own. It exists within a constitutional structure.
Similarly, if we had a president who was elected 50% plus one, that's not two wolves and a sheep. I mean, that's That's a
Yeah, it's getting a lot. Well, it's certainly moving. It's moving along closer, and I'm glad that you, Bastiat, think you can balance those interests much better than the founding fathers. Great.
Do you think? Well, look, I mean, as much as I like the founding fathers, I think they did far more good than bad, and I think anybody who wants to throw the founding fathers out is insane. Nevertheless,
that's what you're doing.
The founding fathers, I'm not throwing them out by saying, well, they had it mostly right, but they had a few things that need some improvement. For example, they wrote the slavery thing in the Constitution. Not good. Need to fix that. You can tinker with it a little bit, but I mean, the fundamentals. Yeah, the fundamentals are good.
Great,
I just feel like the electoral college is not one of them.
99.9% of people agree with. Great.
Yeah, to make the point that the founding fathers were not like gods among men who cannot be improved upon a little bit.
Yeah, but you're talking major wholesale structural change, not just, I'm going to improve it a little bit.
This is basically saying that instead of handing the election to Florida, Ohio, and a couple of other swing states every single year, then instead of that, it would be individual citizens choosing the election whose the weight of whose vote would all be equal across the country.
Yes.
You fundamentally change the way the country works.
That's true, but it wouldn't be much of a loss for anybody except Florida and Ohio.
I mean, and like with the current way it gets run, they're always trying to finagle like district borders and everything like all the time. I mean, if we were to like remove that entire system and it's literally just people vote for who they want to vote for, I feel like could potentially, because when they wrote everything before and we're like, we're going to have this and that, the majority of the population was illiterate. Can we acknowledge that? Like a lot of people weren't able to vote, and they weren't wise enough to like get really involved into politics. So they also didn't have the time to, because they were like women in the house, or they were people of color, or they were slaves, all this stuff. Where now we have social media and we have people paying attention, people are communicating, the general population is a lot more educated. Like you could be like, all right, cool, let's get rid of the electoral college, let's get rid of these stupid district borders and just let people vote. Like you remove the whole aspect of borders.
Yeah, which is what we specifically don't want to do. Like the entire reason to have the electoral college is because states are sovereign in our system, and we have a federal system where we don't have just one centralized authority. We have states, and the states have power, and the states have power through the Senate, and they have power through the electoral college. And you're talking about fundamentally altering and changing our system away from this very wonderful balance that, might I say, is working perfectly right now. 2016 was an example of how the electoral college works well. That's what it's designed to do. This is a very, very balanced interest of all of the things, and it's working perfectly. The idea of changing it now is preposterous, and you would basically might as well do away with the states, might as well do it away with the Senate. Let's just have do away with the Constitution. Why don't you guys just do that? Let's just have a parliamentary system. Fuck it.
Do you think delegates
if you want
really
Trump to
have?
keep going on for multiple terms, you want a parliament.
Do you think delegates?
There's I don't understand why the presidency, which is it's like the only national office, the only thing everybody in the country votes for. I mean, why that wouldn't be decided in a single election, the same way that each senator, each representative, each person is voted on.
It should go back to the state legislatures. Should go back to the state legislature.
The Senate, for example, which, by the way, the Senate operates, as much as there are a lot of people on the left who don't like it, the Senate operates, I think, exactly as it should. And it recognizes, unlike the Electoral College, the Senate recognizes the unique nature of state sovereignty in a federal system. The Electoral College, on the other hand, doesn't do that. It doesn't grant equal weight by states. It just seems to grant extra votes to swing states. But,
well, to me, what it sounds like
swing states. But when you're talking about like scrapping all of this and becoming a parliamentary system, I don't think that's what like anybody's proposing.
Pretty much so.
Wait, are you trying to because when you say that, to me it sounds like you're saying that the Electoral College just kind of has their hand on the pulse of the American people, that they truly understand what the American people want. It doesn't matter what they vote, right?
No, what the Electoral College is designed to do is actually to preserve our Constitution. It's actually designed to preserve the entire structure that we have set up in our Constitution. It's designed to preserve our rights, and preventing New York and California from taking their urban enclaves and choosing the president every time. It's the Electoral College right now is actually preserving and protecting our rights in a lot of the smaller states where we don't elect Democrats who want to take away our rights. So that's why I say it's working perfectly as planned.
Oh, you even got
Wait, it's working because.
Come on, nobody's
what
trying
is
to
its
take any
what is its
rights.
function right now?
Dude, nobody.
It's how we choose the president. That's how Trump won the presidency. It's incredibly important. What are you talking about? What's its function?
like
We
the
have
point is
to
that like
protect
why do you think that
ourselves,
like
or
why do you think that they
Democrats
should be able to
will take
subvert
away
the
our
vote?
right.
I'm coming to
Why do you
take
think
away
they
your
should
rights,
be able to
guys.
subvert like what people actually
Y'all gonna be
vote
vegan
for?
now.
It's not subverting the vote because pure democracy sucks.
Well, so you're saying that democracy sucks. You would rather
Yes,
have like some
pure democracy sucks. It's terrible
So
government form.
Would you rather have like autocrats or like these?
No,
like,
I'd rather have a constitutional republic.
Hold on a minute. When you say pure democracy, you're just saying that some things should not be left to a vote. You're not saying like any democratic election sucks. Like presumably you're saying like presumably. Well, I guess this depends on what you mean. Like for example,
I'm rejecting the notion that it's undemocratic and therefore we need to throw it out.
Okay, so
it's
suppose
part of a
then-
constitutional republic
Right,
system and it's working perfectly.
So suppose you go back to the original system where the Electoral College really is basically an independent body of people who choose who the president will be. Its votes are not dictated by some kind of election in which us, the proles, get to vote too. I mean, are you saying that's like, that's fine? Or, I mean, I don't know, like how original do you want to go there? Like, should it really just be like literally the Electoral College? And I guess maybe they take their instructions from the state legislature.
The way
or
we
what?
have it right now, the way we, like I just said, it's working perfectly. I'm not talking about taking it back to
What
some
do you mean it's
other
working? Why is it
previous
working
system.
perfectly? There's an element of democracy here. So, like, how much democracy? If you're saying pure democracy sucks, like most of the electors are elected by pure democracy. It's just done on the state level instead of the national level. So, like, where does it start to suck?
Because when it starts taking away state sovereignty. Go ahead, Sushi.
Lecture fan, if like there was a pure like democracy vote and everybody was in favor of whoever you wanted in office, would you support it?
No.
You wouldn't support it even if it was in your favor.
The difference. That's the difference between me and Democrats is I actually have principles that I stand by even if they don't benefit Republicans. Whereas Democrats, they're talking about changing a structure and a system that we've had set up for 230 years for straight up bare, raw, partisan politics. That's what's terrible is talking about amending the Constitution and wholesale changing our system just because your party lost an election. That is incredibly short-sighted and shallow.
So what about, let's look at the Senate though, Lecture. Why do you have 2 senators in Montana and I have 2 senators in California? Like,
Because
why do you need that much of a handicap? What's wrong with you guys out there? You need that much of a handicap.
The reason is because Montana's a state and California's a state.
So we have 40 million people here. How many of you guys got? Like a million?
States are equal. Why does every country get 1 vote at the UN?
Well,
Why is it
ideally,
get 1,000? I mean, it's
the way
because
that-
each state shares an equal amount of sovereignty. Therefore, each state gets 2 senators.
What is so
Otherwise, at
different
that point, you
about
really may as well abolish the United States and just make it, one thing, and then I guess you can just have administrative provinces for fun.
Yeah,
But-
see what's really ironic about this, and this is I think true irony, but the reason that the Democrats hate the fact that small states have a lot of power in the Senate is because the Democrats have centralized power in the federal government. Because the way the system is supposed to work is that states are supposed to do most things, and then the federal government has very specific limited enumerator powers. And if that's the case, then if you're in California, you don't care if Montana has 2 senators because look, the Californian government is the real government where everything important gets done. So we don't really care about that. So it's just ironic that Democrats have spent all of this time pushing power into the federal government, and they don't even think the federal government power structure is set up any good. So they've actually pushed power to states like Montana. You wouldn't care if Montana has 2 senators and California has 2 senators if the federal government wasn't as massive and powerful as it is. The way to fix it is to send the power back to the states, not wholesale change the entire structure.
I don't know. I mean, the Senate was a big deal back in before the Civil War, even though the government wasn't doing much. I mean, I don't know if that's new.
We can give you examples though of ways that you like the federal government too, like the Hyde Amendment. I'm sure you're quite fond of that.
I just are you guys really are all the people on the left here dissatisfied by the Senate and think it should be abolished or just changed into House of Representatives 2 or something?
No, I'm fine with the House and the Senate. My issue is with the Electoral College because right now the problem with it seems like a lot of people feel like their vote doesn't matter, regardless of their states. You have a lot of people that are they don't want to be involved in politics. They feel like their vote doesn't matter.
Well, I read a report that said the Senate is basically by design racist, and that really just blew my mind. It
You
seemed
said-
like
Yes.
one of the most, like, because basically the notion of giving Wyoming the same number of votes as California is therefore structurally inherently racist because Wyoming is white majority, California is not, and therefore, and it's just it like
I feel like
couldn't
that's
believe-
reaching, but
I mean, is there? I mean,
Well, the
I'm
whole
I'm
16
100% with LectureFan on the Senate. Although
whole
I don't want to
16
return the vote to the state legislature. That's another issue.
the whole 1619 project by the New York Times was essentially arguing the entire American system. The entire thing is racist. So of course the Senate's
Wow.
racist. The whole country and founding and whole project and constitution is.
I think the racism is a distraction. I think it's corruption. It can't be that hard to buy a couple senators in those small states like that, and they can hold back everything. I mean, I don't think Rand Paul is like a serious person. Like, I think this person is just being paid money to
that's
take hard
basically the
votes.
point, is to make it harder to do stuff than not to do stuff. I mean, that's like if the U.S. has one structural feature, I mean, that has to be it. It is way harder to do something than to not do something.
Yeah, it's like, look, if California wants to crank up their taxes and give free healthcare to everybody, quote unquote, free healthcare to everybody. And if California wants to crank up their taxes and pay for free college for everybody, quote unquote, free. And if California wants to do all this stuff, go for it. But to try to force it on the entire country at the federal level, I think is where, it starts to bother me, because as a Montanan, I don't want to have California forcing their socialist type policies on me as a Montanan.
I mean, like, like with the way healthcare currently works, you're still paying into a pot, but like in your own company, right? So I mean, like having it national, we're still paying into a pot, but we're covering everyone. Like, if anything, it's better for the American system. And then also, if you have like a healthier population, so if you're all for capitalism, having a healthier population means you have people more willing to work, and then less medical bills because like they can get their general checkups. Because a lot of people can't even afford basic healthcare checkups annually. So if you have that, then you have more people putting into the market, being able to work, not calling out, all that stuff. Like, there's literally only benefits from.
No, it would be a nightmare disaster system if the federal government took over healthcare. It would hurt the very people it's supposed to help.
How so?
Because every time, first of all, you would have a lot of closures of hospitals immediately. You would have to crank up taxes.
Do you have proof, like, where do you have like political
look at
sources for that?
Look at every country that has it. Go to Canada, go to the UK, go to Ireland. They all hate their healthcare system, and it's terrible, and there's massive wait lines, and it's awful, and it's unfair, and it's completely ridiculous. And it lowers quality, increases wait times, and is all around bad effects.
Even the great Margaret Thatcher did not want to disband the National Health Service. I mean, or at least she didn't really try.
Yeah, look, I mean, the National Health,
like, what do you mean by like they all hate it? Like, even I don't want the National Health Service. I like another model, but like I really.
It's hard for me to take your point seriously when you say things like
occasionally try
everybody
and cut around
and all
the edges,
people.
but like everybody hates.
It's a really general statement. Like, if you have polling numbers to show, like, there's a lot of people that were like supporting for NHS to like still be around. Then you had doctors that were quitting because of the new prime minister and the way that they want to go ahead and change their system to be like ours. Like, they've been having shortages for certain drugs and everything as well. Like,
the
our
point is
system
they're
isn't
dissatisfied
good
with
for
the
our
system.
country. It's been failing everyone. When you have people literally making the decision of,
I agree.
I'm
want
going to go
massive
and
change.
die.
I agree.
then-
I support massive change to the system. 100%. I'm not defending the status quo. We have the status quo because of the government interventions in the market. So I'm the last person that's saying the status quo, what we have now, is anything good. I mean, that's what's crazy is like people on the left seem to say, oh, here's a statistic, something's bad. Oh, we automatically need more government. And it's just like, that's never the answer. The less government's the answer. And people are dissatisfied with the NHS. Yeah, the people in the UK have been duped by leftists into thinking that, hey, more government funding for NHS will fix the system. But you know what? It doesn't. And they're very dissatisfied with it. And it's the number one political issue constantly over there. And the NHS is a perfect example of why you don't want government-run healthcare. Look at what happened with that autistic girl, Beth, that happened in the news. Horrific story of government abuse of its own citizens. Look at the baby Alfie story. Look at all of this stuff
Look
that
at
goes
the
on
American
in the NHS.
story
It's
where you have
absolutely
people
terrible.
every day dying and being unable to afford healthcare and going bankrupt. And also, if you have it on the
People die
state
every
level,
day
like
in other
California
countries,
has
too.
California Care, Now, so for example, my sister, so she has colitis. She can get covered by California. Now, if we leave it up to the states, if for whatever reason she's unable to afford living in California, because as Dan has said before, well, if you can't afford to live there, go fucking somewhere else. But if she has a medical condition and other states don't have the same coverage, she's totally fucked. She's going to die. And so having it nationally, so people like this should support Dan's argument where it's like, well, if you can't afford to stay in California, but you can go and get somewhere else, and you have healthcare coverage.
The better way to do it is actually get government out of the system so that prices come down, so then she could afford it and she wouldn't die. So I'm literally trying to save people's lives. I can't believe you guys all want people to die.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could stop talking about like people are gonna die. You want people to die because at the end of the day, I don't really like. I feel like the healthcare thing is a practical consideration. I mean, like I just don't feel like there's another way to do it other than to have the government involved the way it is in all the other rich countries. Like as far as I know, all of the other rich countries. But it's not like a matter of like I feel like this way because of the goodness of my heart. I just feel like that. Healthcare is a good we all want, and this seems to be the best way to deliver it affordably. I don't feel like, but like all these moral arguments make me like super. I guess they make me feel super uncomfortable.
And if we leave it up
like
to
it's
the
always an
states,
attack,
too.
Like if any, like you can, like given how big the federal government is, like any policy it takes on must have some kind of life and death implications, or maybe almost any policy like must have some kind of like I don't know. It's just super frustrating.
And then also, if you leave it up to the states too, like we had, what was it, that one Ohio legislator that was like, hey, we're going to go and pass a bill to make it so that way any woman with an ectopic pregnancy has to go and get it transplanted. Never mind that he didn't do the research and that it would give them septic shock and would kill them. So if you leave it all up to the states to dictate all the different healthcare things, you can have these really, really weird controls placed on people. And then, which I mean, would go into the whole conservative argument of like pro-life choices, everything like that, right? But then if you have people that are not for that, and then they can't leave, or if they were to go, they can't afford to move somewhere else, but they have to illegally go get this, they come back, they can get thrown in jail for it. Like there's just too much like weird finagling. So if we had it a way where people could live in whatever state they wanted to, like economically it was feasible, I'm totally on board for states deciding what they want to do, because then people can be like, look, I don't agree with like this healthcare system, I'm going to go somewhere else. They'd actually have a legitimate option and choice. But if it's just, we'll leave it up to whatever, like, I feel like it's going to be screwing people over more than the potential help in that regard,
Maybe if we had lower federal taxes and less federal involvement, some states really could have universal health care and other states could just say, screw it, let the market decide.
I do. The topic was supposed to be space. I like how the topic was supposed to be Space Force, but we ended up on Medicare for All. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just it's funny.
It's just really interesting because it's I feel like if this issue was solved, our politics would be much less life and death all the time.
Yeah.
True.
But it's unfortunate that a lot of it is life and death, which it sucks, it really sucks that that's the thing.
I am glad that we are arguing in America in general about issues like this instead of nonsense, you know what I mean? Like racism or something like that. So
yeah, racism is nonsense. Something I wanted to say was that one thing that I to lead back to Space
You killed
Bastiat. Damn, Sushi. It's not what I meant, but okay.
I literally just said what you said.
Yeah, he's so good. That was so good. Good. Just so good. It was just like, yeah, racism is nonsense.
Oh, here, I was given
I'm looking at my notes. Okay, something I wanted to say was that a lot of people are against
hate, man.
Well, what's Donald Trump's plan to fix racism? You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. There's no. It's not a policy.
It's fucking nonsense. Just let it do its own thing, Anyways, one thing a lot of people say when it comes to Space Force is
Space Force.
They'll say, why should we be thinking about Space Force when not everybody has healthcare and like shit like that, which is kind of how I feel like this whole conversation.
we can do both. Like
exactly, we can and should do both. So I don't know
question
why
with
that's
Space Force. Since you have notes, do you know if in their plan they're going to be addressing like all the space waste that we have?
Yeah,
like,
I think in their mission statement, it's to It's not in their mission statement.
Space Force, but we're gonna keep making it difficult for us to leave the atmosphere.
Is to organize, train, and equip space forces in order to protect the U.S. and allied interests in space and provide space capabilities to joint force. So I don't think that they actually care about the health of space itself.
Which
Well,
is funny
I think
because
that's
we're
pretty fair
trapping
to say.
ourselves on the
Don't
planet
you
without cleaning up
think-
those dead satellites.
Like, wait, let's move on to our climate change topic. I also have notes on that. That's the only other topic I have notes on.
I'm actually down for that conversation. I do
Okay.
just want to say though, the other day, the reason I kind of wanted to have this be a topic is because I thought I was like super against Space Force. I thought it was like a waste of like I thought it was just Trump doing it for optics or whatever, and I was like, what the fuck, like this isn't necessary. But apparently we are lacking in certain technologies that like I think like Sushia pointed out that Russia and China is already like developing as
Yeah.
far as like satellite warfare and shit like that. So maybe
No,
it
I
is
think it's a
good
good
that
idea.
we
All the memes aside, yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, and I think as far as the uniform thing, I know it's mostly a meme, but I think the point of the uniform is that like there's not going to be personnel in space. You don't need camo
There
for
you
space,
go.
okay? The personnel are going to be on the ground, and the ground has trees, so maybe that's why they're that color. But yeah, I don't know.
Most of them will be manning satellites and the such. They're not going to be in space, but hiding behind space bushes. They're going to be on the ground,
Space
hiding
bushes.
behind Earth bushes. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Man.
All right. So
Ah.
yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the the climate change topic.
Hey, this is my field.
yeah, exactly. Glad to have you actually
Mine
for
too.
this one.
Here we go. Here
Um,
we go.
Let's
All right,
go.
So recently, President Trump announced that the United States will join the 1 Trillion Trees initiative launched at the World Economic Forum. When speaking about it, he said, "We're committed to conserving the majesty of God's creation and the natural beauty of our world." He also took aim at socialists in the statement about the initiative as well, saying, "We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country, or eradicate our liberty. America will always be proud, strong, and unyielding position of freedom." And then so that, like he said a lot of things about that, but I don't know. How do we feel about this 1 trillion trees initiative? I guess.
Cool
Sounds,
story, bro. Fix the shit that you've already broke.
It
like,
kind of seems like, I don't know, after his comments towards what's her name, Greta something with a T, it
Oh,
kind of
Greta
seems
Thunberg?
like he's
Yeah.
not actually like thinking about the environment, bro, and just thinking about saying things that he thinks other people want to hear. On the other hand, Mr. Beast has already helped what is the organization called?
oh, Team Trees.
Post
Yeah.
plant over 20 million trees. So
Yeah.
So you think the tree planting is a good thing or a bad or like a pointless or not enough or what do you
I
think?
think that he's doing it for the wrong reasons.
Do you think it
Yeah.
matters that it like because I know like when I watch The Bachelor, sometimes the or The Bachelorette, sometimes the main, the Bachelorette is like, I just want to make sure you're here for the right reasons. But like, does that really matter? I mean, if it's a good
I think in The Bachelorette
goal?
it does matter. Yeah.
Well, what about though with the trees? Does it matter then?
I think that there's different ways of doing something good. Let's say I could either give someone a cake, or I could, spend quality time with that person and make sure the cake has all the right ingredients and
Make sure they don't have like allergies,
yeah, like there's different things you could do that might be more meaningful long term, like
yeah. Like
why not
overall, it's
promote
good.
systems
Like-
that are already in place instead of other things. Why not help promote like team trees, or maybe make it a bigger issue rather than just saying, oh yeah, we'll plant a trillion trees. It's like fine.
Yeah, to me it seems kind of
did
like
you
a
read
cop
that off
out.
your
Like it seems
notes?
like a
Like-
band-aid. No, I was just I was pretending. I just feel like he's like slapping a band-aid on something instead of actually talking about like the issue, like saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna plant trees to like preserve like the beauty.
True.
It's like, okay.
I want to get to the root of this. LectureFan, do you believe in climate change?
Guess it depends on
It's
what.
not
yeah,
not the right question. It's do people cause it?
Do you believe that people have caused it? Do you believe in the global warming? Do you believe in the global warming hoax?
Man-made. That all of the climate is man-made. No.
No,
Not
okay,
all of the
so
climate.
Bell, here you go. There you
That
go.
is
Okay, I'll-
In the next 30 minutes.
no, so I'm gonna go ahead and clarify that question. So, do you believe that the IPCC that they are all wrong, and that we are over 400 parts per million of greenhouse gases when our maximum, as represented in ice core data, had only reached 300 before, and that this change has been noted as dramatic increase of greenhouse gas in our atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution? Do you think that is false, and that we're just in some weird natural
Oh no, I'm sure.
change?
Of course, I think the CO2 that's in the atmosphere, some of it's man-made for sure.
Okay.
It's made by cows' butts farting.
It's like, dude, animal like agriculture I think is like what 3% or something right now. Like
What about peat bogs? What about peat bogs? What about draining the peat bogs? Have you guys done your research on peat bogs lately? Did you know draining the peat bogs is one of the top things burning holes in our ozone layer? Do you guys ever think about that? We need to stop draining the peat bogs. The thing is, we can make peat moss replacement that's just as good for your gardens using cow manure.
What the fuck are peat
Man,
bogs?
you
What
don't
kind
know
of
You didn't really
bumfuck
do
place do you live in
research.
where peat bogs are a thing? Jesus.
Yeah,
Or
so
like-
peat moss grows like this much every
Oh,
year.
peat moss?
Yeah, and it grows in
Okay.
bogs, and they have to drain the bogs to collect the moss. And when they drain the bogs, it releases a shit ton of CO2 into the air.
Are you from the Midwest? Is this what
No.
is this what people like deal with over there? No,
I've literally never heard of this. I want to look into it.
You guys
But,
should
um,
definitely look into it because it's a big thing, and nobody talks about it.
And no one talks about all the methane either. That's been like getting released from all the ice melt and everything. That's that's a problem. Like we're seeing that I think up in Alaska as well. And then you have factories that are also like producing a lot of methane. And I think one of the recent deregulations was that companies no longer have to report their methane emissions. Because like the biggest thing, like, oh, like CO2, but then they're like, methane. And methane's
What do you
lasts
guys think
longer.
about hemp being used to make clothing instead of cotton?
Dude, why not?
You really
So
had to
much
emphasize
more environmentally
that
friendly.
Yeah, I
just
mean, it'd
asked,
be great.
like, what brought it up? Because what's interesting is it feels like hemp, it's so curious that it hasn't like caught on more politically, because like the people who are into hemp are really into hemp.
Fucking true. Dude.
Because
Like
it's
you could
awesome.
probably name several more goods that you can make out of hemp right now. I'm
And
guessing.
there's
Dude, you can make
paper,
everything out of hemp. Are you kidding me? You can make
you can
cars
make
out
There's
of
also
everything
hemp.
out
hemp
of hemp.
plastics.
You
And
can
then
make
it's
fucking-
biodegradable
Hemp
too.
was like the number one thing produced. What is that called? The number one crop in America until prohibition, because it just got grouped in there because they didn't have the ways of measuring the amounts of things in the fields, and now we do. So we should just plant more hemp.
I agree. We should have more.
That's what
hemp.
I'm saying, buddy.
I agree. We should get big government out of my hemp farm. Dan,
Well,
what do you
hemp
think
was-
about
yeah,
that? You
hemp
don't
was-
seem
hemp was
interested in
legalized.
hemp.
Yeah, it's like a stoner shit. I'm pretty sure that like we have hemp right now. That's the reason you can go buy your fucking hippie necklaces and shit like that. I don't think yeah, no one's
But
trying to
hemp
stop.
needs to be bigger. Hemp used to be big in the U.S.
Yeah, and
This
then
is
people
real.
realize that you're a fucking hippie if you buy it. So that's why I kind of went down to this shit.
But if we just brought
That's
it
the
back,
free
it'd be
market.
fine. Am I
Bring it
looking-
back.
I'm
I
not
believe in
hippie.
you. Bring
Look,
it back.
Dan,
Do
you
I
can
look
build
like a
houses.
hippie?
All right, you're
Do I
the
look
landlord.
like
You
a
can build
hippie?
houses with hemp. Okay, aren't you excited
Oh,
about
Yeah,
that?
there you go. Build.
They have
do, like,
amazing
hemp bricks.
thermodynamics. All right.
So apart from
Oh.
like peat and hemp, what do you think about climate change, Dan? What should we be doing about it?
I think that we need to do more than we are, but the problem is that I don't know why, but we're not listening to we're not listening to scientists. It's like pretty fucking crazy, but yeah, like I don't know what to say about it except that it's fucked. And like when it gets to a point where you like listen to politicians versus scientists, like we're fucked. There's nothing you can do at this point. Like we're lost.
Yeah.
There has to be systematic major change that's done. There needs to be massive incentives to be able to reduce our polluting factors that we do, and it needs to happen on a global level. But you know, here I'm hopeful, but also sad. I'm hopeful that when shit gets really fucked, there will be global consensus. Like, okay, wow, we're having tsunamis every day now. We got to do something. But I'm also sad because when that happens, obviously it's too late and we're fucked at that point. But
yeah, it's like once everyone's backyard is burning, then people will be like, ah, and then it's like we should have been doing it when, like, yeah. I'm glad that we agree on this, Stan. Like, I'm really happy about that.
I thought we're all going to be dead in 12 years, aren't we?
By 2050.
I think dying would be the better
I'll
term,
be
but
dead in
yeah.
12 years.
All right, so let me
I don't
go
know
and
if
address
everyone-
this thing. The 12 years
What?
remark is looking at IPCC data, analyzing tipping points, and my chat's like, oh shit, Baila's going off. Like, I hate this whole thing when people are like, well, what about the 12 years we're all gonna die? It's like, okay, no. Like, it's showing that it's showing that our numbers are increasing. And if we want, in order to mitigate and adapt most effectively and cheaply and responsibly and economically sound, we should be doing that sooner rather than later. Because if we do it later, it's going to be more expensive, it's going to use more resources, it's going to hurt more people, and it's going to hurt the economy even more. Like, all this stuff, right? It's going to be so incredibly wasteful the longer we wait. Now, I am infuriated that they were like, in 12 years, we're going to die. It's like, we're not going to die. Like, it means it's just going to be
some of us will
more.
die.
People are already dying.
Why are you gonna die in 12 years?
Because the asteroids, the dragons, and the I don't know. But
I'm
yeah,
just
no, like,
saying, there's no way that you know that you're not gonna die in the next 12 years.
oh, it's the whole like the world's gonna end thing. People are like, well, the
Oh,
world's gonna
okay.
end in
All
12
right,
years,
okay.
and
I
it's
thought
like,
you
no,
said-
like,
okay, I thought you meant, Sushi, that you were gonna be
I
dead
will
in
be
12
dying
years.
in the next 12 years. From the
Oh.
asteroids.
As a matter of fact,
from the
Okay.
asteroids,
Okay, all right.
from the dragons that are gonna hatch out of the moon, and they're gonna
Let's
they're
talk
gonna
about
come and make the
plastic.
climate really hot.
They're going to. They're
Well,
coming.
So, all right.
Plastic
So,
debris constitutes 60 to 80% of all marine population. And
yeah,
in
plastics is
some
a huge
areas-
problem.
Wait, I lost my spot. It can account for as much as 90 to 95% of all pollution.
So
At
we ban
least
single-use
700
plastics.
species worldwide. The thing is, they don't. Companies do not want to ban single-use plastics. Companies are going to fight hard as fuck against banning the ban of single-use plastics.
Also, thankfully, we're not in an authoritarian dictatorship, so that's not going to happen.
I mean, the thing is, this is where like it gets kind of doom and gloom. Like, if the world ends up, like, if we literally do nothing, and we get to all these tipping points, it's going to come down to where governments are going to have to be like, look, like, you have to do what we say. And I mean, knowing America, they're probably going to be like, no, fuck you, we're going to go into Mad Max world because you're not allowed, you can't tell me not to have my single-use plastic bag. I want it. And then, you know, hopefully, I don't want it to get to that point. And this is where, like, we have to just acknowledge, hey, this is a problem, and we have to compromise. Like, we need to have our government being involved, being like, look, there has to be these regulations. We can't keep deregulating things. Like, the EPA or USDA? One of the things, they just went ahead and rolled back, like, wetland and river protections in agriculture and farmland. And wetlands we have like less than 20% of our wetlands now, and they are like big biodiverse ecological hotspots. You lose those, you're losing massive biodiversity, and they also help fertilizing the land. And with all the nitrate fertilizers, you know, the really big chemical fertilizers that a lot of these industrial farms use, it pollutes the waterways. That's why we have the big like algae dead patch in the Gulf of Mexico that's just never going to be fixed because they're all running out to the Mississippi.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of biofiltro?
Biofiltro. I think
Biofiltro works with like farms and dairies and stuff like that. I actually have a tattoo of a worm in support of biofiltro. So pretty much the worms filter the water. Sorry, Bastiat. The worms filter the water and take out all the bad shit and put in good shit.
Wait a
so
minute,
instead of saying no bad bad farmers. We should be saying yes, biofiltro, and supporting things like this that solve the issues rather than just talking about how bad the issues are.
You got a tattoo to support them for free?
Yeah, I did. I love them.
Yeah, no, I'm all in support of us like having better agricultural practices. Absolutely. It's just infuriating seeing like we've reached over like 100 deregulations and agriculture is already heavily subsidized. So it's just this whole, yeah, we need better agricultural practices. And there's one study, man, I wish I'm sorry that this was impromptu. Normally I have for climate, I have all this stuff pulled up, but so there's, if we revitalize our topsoils, they're really big carbon sinks. So worms are really great. And then we have more microbacterias and life in the soil. And if you have a richer topsoil, it's not as dry and doesn't get blown away as easily. And if you have topsoil crops, it also helps. You don't have to use as much water and all that. So there's so many good things we can do to change our agricultural practices that would help with the climate and help with just make food better in general and also improve the waterways. We just haven't been doing it. And I don't think our current government's going to want to do that, because to do that, it's a radical shift in the way that we view agriculture. And that's shame on the... Yeah. I totally support worms. Worm poop is really good.
Regenerative by nature, revolutionary by design, harnesses the digestive power of worms and microbes to remove up to 99% of contaminants for your wastewater and convert your waste stream into regenerative revenue streams. Biofiltro, revitalize water.
There we go.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you guys were right. There's a lot of small. I guess I just feel I don't know. Maybe other people, in the chat or here would be willing to take a hit on their standard of living. To resolve this. I probably wouldn't. So I would, I guess I could pay more on my electric bill or pay some higher taxes, but I'm not going to stop flying. I'm not going to, I don't
advocate for the whole stop flying thing. Cause it's I have family all around the world. It's not stop flying. It's develop a better fuel.
Well,
fund that,
it seems like we probably ought to start working on some carbon capture and, some nuclear power and
thorium.
Yeah
there's a lot of solutions. There's one site, I'm not sure what is it's where did I put it?
So real quick,
I personally do not drive a car because I care about the environment.
Somebody said Sushia should tattoo the plastic eating enzyme on her forehead.
Wait a minute. How much did you
draw
that for
down
free?
You
did this worm tattoo for free?
No, I paid for this tattoo of a worm.
No. I'm saying but they didn't biofilter.
They didn't. No, they didn't give it. I just liked them.
Wow. Man.
Did you know fun fact, everybody, when I went to college, my major was agricultural systems management with a focus on water and soil treatment.
Wow,
we're friends.
Damn.
Yep. And then I decided I needed to travel the world, and I dropped out of college, and that's tea.
Wow.
But when I was in college, that's what I cared about, and I still care about those issues a lot.
We're best friends
really
now. I'm
cool.
graduating this May with environmental science and policy, so
that's what my ex-girlfriend's major is.
Hey. Yeah, it's been fun. Environmental law was really heavy.
Can I take off my socks?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
I wasn't sure if there's a rule here about that.
I mean, are you selling feet pics, I guess?
Did you not check the rule list on the Big Brain Podcast contract?
I just wasn't sure. My feet are pretty
Feet are fine, ankles are banned.
Okay. I know.
Yeah, I've been barefoot this whole time, so
It's fine, Susha. Just make sure if you show feet, you gotta say any primers for Mindwaves in chat. Any primers?
All
right.
Oh man.
Bastiat keeps.
It's written in the contract, right? You already agreed. So.
I did find that without reading it. So.
All right.
So there's another climate change topic I wanted to touch on. Kind of just wrap up this climate change topic. So this one I think is interesting. So the UN Human Rights Committee made a landmark ruling on Monday in relation to an individual from Kiribati. I'm probably butchering the name, but who brought a case against New Zealand after authorities denied his claim of asylum. Says the ruling says if you have an immediate threat to your life due to climate change, due to climate emergency, and if you cross the border and go to another country, you should not be sent back because you would be at risk of your own life, or you would be at risk of your life, just like in a war or in a situation of persecution. So basically, this sets the precedent that like the climate emergency or climate change could be a reason to seek refugee or asylum, rather. So
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Well, do you disagree? Well, I was okay. So we already have some disagreement. So why do we think this is like a good or bad precedent to set?
Good, because so if you okay, so we'll take Australia for example. And with all the fires and everything like that, and you have people whose land just won't recover, right? We'll just say hypothetically, you take a person whose land literally won't recover, and they have to go somewhere else, either elsewhere in Australia. I don't know how borders really work in Australia. If that's a whole different thing, or I guess to make it more relevant, let's go ahead and use just say Mexico and the United States, right? So. Say Mexico gets devastated with fires and drought. Absolutely. And they can't go and recover from this. I think they have a right to go and move elsewhere, to start a life elsewhere. If the land is literally unrecoverable, you have issues of massive deforestation in, I think it's Afghanistan, where they literally can't go and fix this land for agriculture. It's just dead. So if you have dead zones, you can't expect people to just stay there and wither and,
Do you think people should be able to cross for any reason or for no reason, or is it just climate refugee that's different?
Well, I think so. I support open borders. I think America, the American dream, and all that. If you want to come to America for a better life, absolutely.
No, I was just curious because
wow. I thought Bastiat was the only open borders person I'd ever meet.
Yeah, no, I'm all open borders.
Don't you know we're all
I'm not open borders. I think
that's
we
what
should
I thought.
have no
borders.
Yeah. We should just not have borders in general.
Well,
I'm really important is trying to do a service for the country and convince Americans that not all Democrats are open borders. And here we've got people saying, "Hey, we're open borders."
Yeah, no, I'm
100%
open borders. Not socialist, but open borders. I should be able to hire whoever I want for whatever legal purpose I want, and for you to put the law in the way of me and my freedom to hire a climate refugee from Mexico. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I love how your primary reasoning for it is the freedom to hire.
Yeah, or to be hired. By the way, what if I get a job in Mexico and I want to move there? I mean,
what is that?
There's for way government to get in the way of that. I mean, why should government get in the way of that, man?
It's true.
Wow,
why should you stand in the way of Bastiat going to Mexico?
You're talking about free market healthcare, right? A huge part of making free market healthcare happen would probably be importing people from underdeveloped countries to work for less, so that they could make it more price competitive. The benefits are
trying to use pro-business, pro-economic growth arguments for that. That's what's rich.
Dude, you can say it's rich, but at the end of the day, he's right. There's serious overlap on this stuff.
Well, before we dish it out over open borders, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about if there is a threat of I say threat, but if there is an influx of climate refugees due to global warming and stuff like that. How do we deal with that as the United States? Do we just build a wall forehead and not think of it, or what do we do?
We take them in. We take them in. I think we definitely need to go and change up our citizenship process, because isn't ours really, really long and tedious and everything, right? So that needs to be reformed and just more clear. I think we can probably all agree on that, have better definitions in that whole aspect of things. That we should take them in. I don't see any reason not to, unless you're just kind of like, I mean, sucks that your home's gone and you can't farm anymore. Like, screw you, you know. It's very like just anti people, you know. If you're not, so, because it's like, yeah, that's what I got on it.
Do we think that it should be like do we think that should we agree with the ruling that the UN made and say that like this is like a legitimate, like, should we write it into law that this is a legitimate reason for seeking asylum?
Yes.
Lecture, I know you said no.
Well, thankfully the UN doesn't really have any legitimacy nor any actual say in U.S. law. I mean, the UN Human Rights Commission has been known to have some of the worst human rights abusers on it historically, and the UN is also an institution that gives China and Russia the same veto powers as the U.S. So the UN is not legitimate really in any way. So the fact that the UN did it should make it less, you should be suspicious of it, because anything the UN does is automatically suspicious. And so that actually hurts the cause, in my opinion. Second of all, climate is, of course, not a proper consideration for refugee or asylum applications. These applications are supposed to be based on individual situations, and something like climate, which applies to everybody in the whole world, couldn't possibly be a justification for a status that's determined on an individual basis.
Would you say that would you say that like if some like South American country was devastated by like constant like tsunamis, or like by some sort of like environmental
yeah, tsunamis isn't climate, because those are, I just wanted to clarify, like I know someone jokingly had said tsunamis, but that's caused from subduction zones, or like,
yeah, it would be more like
landslides and that
hurricanes,
kind of
right?
thing.
Like hurricanes.
Yeah, it would be like
hurricanes,
cyclones,
or
drought. So cyclones, drought, fires. You have like the El Nino storms or La Nina. Those are definitely like, so like weather systems is, so earth, you know, people are like, oh, earthquakes, and that's not that's geotech, geology. That stuff.
So people that are on the brunt end of this, that are like displaced because of this, do you think that like that is a legitimate reason to seek asylum? Do you think just trying to tie that into climate change?
Just
or
no,
something like
yeah.
that?
There's just no reason to tie it into climate change. Like, yeah, if some country gets hit by a massive hurricane, and you know people are dying, like, yeah, the U.S. should help them out. We do that all the time. We're the most helpful country on earth.
I didn't mean to. I'm not trying to hijack it to shell for open borders here, but I do feel like the fundamental consideration is the same. Either you think the government has the business of clubbing you in the face if you cross the border, or not. And I mean, like, if you do believe that, then why would you really change your mind if it's like, well, but this is really bad, guys. This is so bad that you're allowed in. You know,
you're
even
talking,
then
you're
it's
acting
not consistent. Like, literally, for example, when we talked about climate change, or when we talked about open borders, like the United States basically had an open borders regime with Cuba. If you got here, then you were in, right?
Correct.
But also because Cuba's super tiny, we can never have that arrangement with China, even though the people of China are probably now far more oppressed than the people of Cuba, given that
Cuba's also right next door.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, so it's all like context sensitive. There's no rhyme or reason to any of the restrictions. I mean,
it's classic government. Like, I don't think anybody disputes that our immigration system is totally screwed up. So again, classic government work. I mean, our immigration system is a mess, no doubt, but that's how government operates.
And here I call for dismantling that regime, and I'm the extremist.
Well, so do we think that like there's any potential that people with nefarious sort of intentions might hijack the like threat of climate change to like push to push for like the exclusion of minorities, or like the exclusion of any immigration at all, like this sort of like a kind of like an eco-fascist? Is that like a threat that we're worried about at all, or is that too far out in the future?
I mean, people talk about it. I don't know. Like, I guess you could call it fascist if you prevent people from entering your country. But I mean, while I think it's bad policy, I don't think it's fascist. It's just really bad policy.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like an issue right now, right? I mean, you have some people that claim to be like eco-fascists, but I mean, any of the reports that you see of them, it's like just literally white supremacists that are being like, oh, the immigrants are this, and that's why we want to go.
Yeah,
right?
like what would that even? I
Like-
don't even understand how you could make that. I don't know. I maybe I just don't know enough about it, but
I don't even know. It's literally just like a racism argument, at least in the form that it is right now, right? And I think that's the only way it's ever gonna be. Like, it's people like trying to latch on to like that small group. It's literally like that little group of people that is just like so fear-mongery or brainwashed. That's like anyone that comes in is gonna be this, and so I have to latch on to the new pop culture thing so I can get heard.
Oh, okay. So you're saying
I
like they
think-
just want to use the environment as an excuse to do.
Yeah,
whatever.
I really don't think they're even concerned about the environment. I think it's just people that group that has been consistently fascist and going after like immigrants and everything. It's just them latching on to the next bandwagon hot topic, which is climate, in order to try to get people to like agree with them on their twisted views. You know, like I really don't think they're actually concerned for the well-being of the world, because then they wouldn't be like,
yeah, because like I've had a conversation with a dude on some random roundtable or some shit that was like arguing that like, oh well, immigration is bad and we should limit it because of climate change, right? And he was saying that like, oh, like the more immigrants you bring over here, those are more people that are going to pollute more, and like a bunch of like nonsense. I don't know. It's just like I've started to notice that there are some people that are starting to use environmental like causes as a way to like justify their bigotry against like immigrants. It's just like very weird. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I mean, unless they were to get like a massive platform and start like running with the let's go terrorize people in the name of the environment, like that's not good.
Well,
Mindwaves, I got to roll. Mindwaves, thanks so much for having me. I'm super tired and got to work tomorrow, so I got to get off. But thanks a lot for having me. Everybody that we chatted with, thanks a lot. I appreciated chatting with all you guys.
It was nice finally meeting you, Lecture.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. As always, it's good having you, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Yep. Bye.
I'm gonna run as well. Mindwaves. I got shit I have to actually do. So
well,
I didn't talk that much, but, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and probably wrap it up anyways. So go ahead and let people know where to find you and shit.
You can find me at twitch.tv/Harkdan. It's good to be here. Had fun. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Cheers.
Later.
All right. Bye, Dan.
Have a good night, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce after the climate topic because it's already 10 and I have class in the morning.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was pretty much the last topic I had anyways. There was another one I wanted to touch on, but it wasn't really noteworthy, so yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that like we're all in agreement that like the climate is an issue. You know?
I think that Coca-Cola is saying that it's going to take them 50 years to even switch to, or what did they say? Did they say 50 years to switch to 50% recycled products? Wait, let me see.
They could do it tomorrow with the amount of money that they have.
The fact that they're saying, "Oh, it would just take us so long to switch everything over." Let me see the exact time.
It's gonna take us so long to like change our marketing and our whole system. It's like, no, you have the plant. Like
they said,
well,
in 10 years,
they also said
50%.
That like, they also said that they probably won't anytime soon because like people like single-use plastic. So
yeah,
like,
I mean that's a much stronger reason. Like the point. Let's see. Shame on you, Coca-Cola, for yet again hiding behind the public instead of taking responsibility for the 120 billion bottles that pollute our planet every year. Cyan Sutherland, co-founder of A Plastic Planet, said in an email, people buy what they are sold, and it is Coca-Cola's job to sell them something different, toxic-free, and nature-safe. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that premise that it's just like, yeah, you know, people will buy whatever you give them. Like, I mean, it's not nonsense to say that people like plastic bottles.
Well, I mean, it's about making it inconvenient, right? So it's the whole, we just got to go back to like, there's already glass bottles, and we can recycle glass very well, just like aluminum.
Yeah,
like we can, even if we wanted to go and be like, okay, like, well, I don't really like plastic, or like we can go to aluminum. We're so efficient at recycling aluminum. Like, and then also people are incentivized to recycle it because we have like the little recycling centers around, right? So it benefits like the individual, and it also benefits the corporation because then like they're not getting like all this PR flack, right? They're like, okay, we can actually go ahead and recycle this. Like if you make it more inconvenient to have single-use plastics, then people are just like it's all about convenience.
I just feel like you have to, if you really wanted to do something about that, the government would have to pass a law, because otherwise, apparently the raw material cost for a same size aluminum bottle is like 25 or 30% more. So to say that Coke is like the villain when Coke would just get tanked for that.
I mean, you don't need like a same size. Like this is where it's like, do you really need like a giant
maybe
Coke thing? You just have a little can.
I think
mean,
sugar
that's
is
like,
evil.
That's
Thank
maybe
you.
That's the way. There's nothing evil about sugar.
Let's
What's
just
evil
get rid
about
of sugar in general. Let's
Why?
just throw it away.
The cereal
Why?
industry is a scam. Like
It's addicting, Bastiat. It's one of the most addicting drugs.
So what? It makes me feel good when you eat it. What more
Amen,
reason do
brother.
I need to want to eat it? So
Oh my god.
Wait, you want to? Well, that's like that's
Birds,
literally the argument that they would
sugar.
ban hemp for.
That it's evil?
Yeah, it's evil. It's the demon seed. Get you,
the devil's lettuce.
Get you feeling high. I mean, like I just feel like.
Did
if
you
wanna
know
ban-
when hemp and cannabis fields are planted next to each other, they cross-pollinate, making the cannabis too low of THC to be able to sell, but the hemp too high to be able to use for other products? Did you know about that?
No,
You
I
guys
didn't.
should
That
learn.
sounds terrible.
You guys should learn
Actually-
about this. It ruins both crops.
Yeah, the
Wow.
reason why is
Dude.
because typically when you're growing weed, you don't want male plants around your female plants, because anytime that anytime that they end up crossing over, it like reduces the potency of your female plants, and you can actually turn a female plant into what is called like a hermaphrodite. So it's like it has both the sex glands of like male plants and female plants.
Dude, oh my
it's very
god!
interesting.
I knew this would happen when they made gay marriage legal. Fucking knew it.
God.
Fucking knew it.
Damn.
Liberals.
The crossover of the
Liberals.
stoner agenda and the gay agenda. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure.
Oh
It's
no.
all, it's all working together, bro.
Oh man, but yeah, like so with plastics, corporations we know aren't going to do shit because plastic is so easy to go ahead and make. I think San Francisco, they're currently trying to work out a ban on single-use plastic bottles. Like, you know, the plastic bag ban started in San Fran, started working its way out into California, other areas. So if it works in San Francisco, we'll probably start seeing that in the next couple of years here in California. And it's doable. It's just about making it like, hey, it's easier for me to get my little aluminum thing with not as much soda because I really don't need the whole giant thing of soda. And
I think it's stupid that they tell us on the bottle what is in the product. I don't want to know. Am I right, guys?
No, I mean, I want to know, like, because then you make
Penny.
education choices.
I had a delicious. All right, before you start bagging on Coca-Cola here, or rather, before you continue bagging on, I had a delicious bottle of Coke
damn.
Energy here. All right, and it
They have
says
good
right
energy
here on the side. It says right here on the side, please recycle. All right, so just
Are you
slay it
gonna
off. They're doing
recycle
their
that
part.
though?
Mindwaves.
I mean, it.
Mine
You
was-
know,
It's like the smallest
you
font
going to?
possible.
it's
Yeah,
Tell
what's up,
Dylan
Dylan?
he's
What's up,
crying.
Dylan?
Tell Dylan he's crying.
Did we let
Will you do
Lecture
it for a Twitch Prime sub? Will you recycle that?
Did we let Lecture Fan what?
All right, chat. You got to give him a Twitch Prime, so that way he'll go and recycle his Coke Energy bottle.
Oh,
I support this recycling program. I think this is economically efficient, sensitive to the environment, and well balanced in terms of where the funds go.
Let me know if you get that sub.
I will
Mindwaves.
indeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
very
what's
much.
up, buddy?
Did we let Lecture Fan leave without talking about Iran?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that I think we're gonna be wrapping up here. I think
Nobody
we're
wants
gonna
to
leave it
talk
off at the
about
climate
Iran.
change topic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We could probably talk about Iran on the next one though, or actually this coming Friday. We'll definitely be.
I would
talking
love
about
to
that,
be
so.
invited to that. Yeah.
I just want to
Yeah,
say
you'll
that I'm a
definitely be
big
invited,
fan-
Sushia. I think you
Yeah.
provided very quality opinions tonight. I think you added a lot
I
to the
think I did
discourse,
too.
and I really appreciate your presence on these types of shows. Yeah.
I'll link you guys my notes just in case you want to ever look at any of the sources I used tonight.
Nice.
See why? Why are you laughing at that? That Pete box stuff was important. Like you guys may not.
It is
know about
important. You
that,
guys should
but-
actually all research that.
I actually
Yeah,
did.
I'm
Apparently,
like-
it's an
I'm
issue
really
in Ireland or
interested.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's an
is.
issue in the whole world. I don't know.
I mean, like as the permafrost in Russia thaws out, I mean, they're going to become a real climate issue.
They already have icebreaker ships. Like Russia's prepared for this. I'm not sure if you guys know that. Like they have more icebreakers than we do, and they're just waiting for everything to melt. like they're prepared regardless of whether or not like we slow this down or like, yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna need all the metal supplies we can, to close the icebreaker gap. And in the meantime, no, I'm just.
Well, we'll use Space Force to
okay. No, that sounds good.
Take the ships, right?
Okay, that works.
There we go.
Space Force.
All right, well, guys, I think it's about that time. Let's go ahead and do our outros rather, and wrap it up. So. Let's see. I'm going to just start from the top on my screen. So that would be Bella, if you want to go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Bela. So I talk about environmental science, justice, policy, and activism on my stream. You can find me at twitch.tv/Bela, Baela. On Twitter, it's at Bela TV. I'll be live on tomorrow, actually. We're going to be looking over the Sunrise Movement's new documentary about the Green New Deal. We're going to be streaming that and talking about it. I'll be live at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 p.m. Eastern. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you could step in for Turing. And it's pronounced Bela. Bela, right?
Yes.
Because I said that before and then somebody else corrected me, so I was like super confused. But all right, I'll note that.
Yeah, no, people I've heard both. It's Bela. So my real name's Kayla. And my friend was like, "Oh, Kayla's Bay, so she's Bela," and that's why it's that. So
very cute.
Yeah,
nice.
so Kayla,
I like that lore.
Bela.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sushi, you want to go next?
Yes. So pretty much, wait, what am I supposed to be talking about?
It's an outro. Tell people about yourself, where to find you, all that good stuff that we do.
My name is Sushi, and you can find me at twitch.tv/Bastiat. I'll put in his chat. That's it.
So we need to do we should do an after show where we can debrief on some of these big issues. I mean, I'm down. Seriously, we really need to keep talking about this stuff.
I think that we do. I think I have a lot to add to the conversation.
All right,
here.
good. I'll be waiting. We'll get it going.
Yeah, we definitely got to connect and talk all the environmental.
Yeah, that's actually something I care about non-meme way.
Yeah.
Sushi, do you ever play video games on stream at all?
I do not play video. I play video games not on stream because I don't think my viewers care about my video game content.
Fair enough. All right. Well, with that being said, Bastiat, you're next. You're up.
Sure. So, my name is Bastiat. I am available at twitch.tv/BASTIAT. I'll drop a link in there. Actually, Mindwaves, I think, just dropped a link, so that's good. We do law and politics. We have a lot of fun, and we do columns pretty regularly, too. Debates, all the good stuff. So please do come over and check us out sometime. It's a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Nice. Hell yeah. Thanks for coming. Dylan,
always a pleasure. Good. And I'm glad you're back here, Mindwaves.
Yeah, it's been a fucking long time. It was about a month, and tonight was really chill, and yeah, it was pretty fun. Sushi, I kept it lighthearted, and that was appreciated. So I had a lot of fun tonight. Honestly, I didn't take the topic list for tonight's show too serious. I like all that shit, so it was really chill to plan out this time. So.
Vibes.
All right, Dylan,
good
go ahead.
Vibes.
Yeah, good vibes. I'm Dylan. I talk.
His name
nice.
is
You talk?
and he talks.
Poggers.
Yep.
Dude,
he
talks.
He knows how to move his mouth and make sounds.
Yep.
Dude, this guy.
Next person, please.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dylan with the skills to pay the bills. I'm really important. You're next.
Yeah. Thanks, Mindwaves, for bringing me back. Welcome back. It was missed. Trust me. And what's that?
Oh no, I just said yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure. My channel, we focus on Capitol Hill, what's going on in the House and the Senate. So if you guys want to come watch the Do Nothing Democrats and the Republicans with us, we're checking out the Senate impeachment trial. 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. It resumes. We'd love to have you. It's a lot of fun watching C-SPAN with a bunch of nerds. So
nice.
Yeah, thanks for streaming all that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been saying that. I'm really glad that you're streaming them because otherwise I wouldn't watch them. So that's really cool. Yeah, like what's your stream schedule like? Like when do you usually start? Because I know you start a lot earlier than me.
Me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I do Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
And that's my normal stream schedule.
Did you stream earlier today as well?
I did, yeah.
Nice. So you've been going all day then, huh?
I had a little break.
Gotcha.
Senate, Donald Trump's defense gave up a little early. They put in about 2 hours of work today, and so I had a little bit of a break.
Hey, well, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it as always. We were gonna be talking about the Democratic primary, and I couldn't think of anybody better to have than you. So, all right. Well, with that being said, MindwavesTV. If you're not following me already, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. I do politics on Twitch Monday through Friday. On Wednesdays we do Witcher. On Tuesdays we do the Big Brain Podcast. Look forward to the next one. Friday, Leon Cyphers as well. So you can catch me and Leon Cyphers both co-hosting a show on Fridays as well. It's kind of similar to this. I don't plan any of it, so it is what it is. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. Hey, thanks.
Cool. Hey, do you guys want to know a life hack? If you buy a McDonald's sweet tea and then you get a couple creamers, cheap milk tea right there. That's how I'm leaving this stream.
All right.
Sushi, I love you.
What a good way to